Chapter 31 IOU. It was not out of his expectations that Zhu Chentao would ask for collaborative testing, and as he did, Yang Chen, like a snake that has been hit by a rod, curled up and asked for guidance. Yang Chen and Zhu Chentao were highly suitable for each other, like bread and butter. This act alone made all of Yang Chen's servants, who were watching this, forget the number of times they had their jaws dropped on the ground. "Elder, I have always trained by myself, there's nothing special about it. I just want the flames to appear, and they do." Yang Chen was not at all modest when facing Zhu Chentao and bluntly raised his problem. "But sometimes it doesn't achieve the shape I want and only appears similar to it. I don't know why, maybe you can look into it, Elder." While speaking, two balls of flame once again appeared on Yang Chen's hands and soon after began their performance, which can dazzle other people. Quietly, the two round flames seemingly mixed entirely with each other, forming a thin flame rod linking Yang Chen's both hands. The thin rod was long and circular, however it had ordinary thickness. The red-colored flame within the rod began to roll, but wasn't able to escape the rod's reach. Immediately following, the flame started to turn into a square-shaped box with the flames smoothly flowing on its surface. If someone did not pay attention, maybe they would be under the impression that this was a real object and not some illusory flames. Following this, the flame kept on changing shapes to more and more complicated figures. A part of the flame formed a double-edged sword, another portion of the flame turned into the ghost aspect knife, even a sheet of flame turned into a table, a book, a piece of jade slip, and then successfully changed into an ignited candle. Shen Da and the other servants watching were already speechlessly standing, rooted to the ground, most of all Holin and Gu Qin. Looking at the ignited candle, the lower part of the candle was motionless as if it was a concrete object, but on the candle's wick, a faint flame was flickering, and because of the red color, it seemed even more vivid and lifelike. The changes weren't over yet. Within a flash, the flame again changed, this time into a tree. Apart from the wrong color, the tree trunk and tree leaves were similar to a red jade carving, bearing a remarkable resemblance to reality. Even the creases on the tree trunk can be seen clearly. If one pays close attention, one is even able to find that on every tree leaf, its entire venation can be seen clearly. Zhu Chentao was worth of being called a Jidan stage expert. With his formidable spiritual awareness, not a single leaf nor even a tiny portion of the flame on Yang Chen's hand was missed. When he discovered that all the leaves were like this, he could not help but jump in astonishment. This kind of method to control the fire, it's simply using the flame to create a world of its own. The flame on Yang Chen's hand was still changing, while maintaining the tree for some time, it loudly dissipated and later on changed into a room. This room was exactly the same as Yang Chen's pill concocting room. So much so that even when Zhu Chentao used his spiritual awareness to sweep over the flame, he just found that it corresponded one-to-one with each brick and each roof tile, the only difference being that they were much smaller. That's all. The next change stunned Zhu Chentao even more. The room suddenly shrunk, following which a lot of things were formed in the surroundings. It was as if Yang Chen's small courtyard had shrunken by many folds and appeared within Yang Chen's hands. By the time when everyone could clearly see all this, the courtyard became even smaller, following which everyone could look at 9 Earth Manor's corner, with 10 more tiny courtyards. Because of everyone's good vision and spiritual awareness, they were still able to see everything very clearly. After stabilizing for a while, the manor shrunk once again, following which a miniature version of the 9 Earth Manor appeared in front of everyone. The real 9 Earth Manor covered an entire area with a circumference of 10 miles, however presently everything was clearly illustrated within Yang Chen's hands. If everyone present were to use their spiritual awareness to sweep over the figure, they would discover that 9 Earth Manor's every piece of brick, every roof tile, even trees and pieces of stones, all can be found within the square kun boundary in Yang Chen's hands, kun equals 3.5 centimeters. Watching all of this, the Jidan stage master Zhu Chentao, as well as Yang Chen's 4 servants Shen Da, Holin, Gu Qin and Ting Yuan, were all thoroughly stupefied. What is this? Was this even flame? Using fire to construct an illusory 9 Earth Manor, furthermore with such detail, made people wonder if even more unbelievable circumstances could exist. It didn't need to be said that Shen Da and the other servants turned foolish as soon as the fire started changing into more and more complex shapes. Apart from opening their mouths and eyes widely and maintaining the stupefied and dumbstruck expression, they weren't doing anything else. Even if Zhu Chentao could brag about having a cultivation of the Jidan stage and having several hundred years of experience in the aspect of controlling fire during concocting pills, even he did not dare to pat his chest to boast being able to achieve the same level as Yang Chen. What made all of this even more unbelievable was that all this was accomplished by a first Kai layer outer disciple. When compared to the people present on the scene, including the servants, he had the lowest cultivation. Everything he achieved was certainly against all expectations and a miracle that could make anyone unable to believe their eyes. Yes, that's right, apart from a miracle, those 5 people present on the scene could not use any other words to describe the current situation. If the current scenario had been caused by a Yuanying stage expert, perhaps it would not be all that surprising, but the fact was that it had appeared in the hands of a first Kai layer outer disciple. The sight of the 9 earth manner stayed for a while before dissipating with a loud sound. All of the scenery once again changed into 2 round tiny faltering flames, flickering beautifully on Yang Chen's hands, reinstating their true features. Yang Chen didn't need to explain much, everyone present understood how he had accomplished this. First using the fire to imitate simple shapes like the rod, square and so on, afterward forming a little more complicated shapes, following which he increased the complexity of the shapes until it could evolve and the entire 9 earth manner could be produced. Yang Chen had revealed all the shapes one by one, precisely following the trajectory of his exercises, there was no need to ask. This kind of perfectionist work, how could it be doubted? At least in the eyes of Shen Da, Holin, Tingyuan and Gu Qin, this was a perfect demonstration, they could absolutely not see anything wrong with it. But a Zhanxian stage expert is a Zhanxian stage expert, Zhu Chentao nevertheless wrinkled his brows as he started pondering as if he had thought of something. It was just that he could not find a solution in this short time. Just recovering to serenity from his shock was already pretty good. Elder, you have also looked, my flame can achieve all this. Yang Chen's words aptly echoed, capturing everyone's attention over to Zhu Chentao. Maybe Yang Chen wanted to ask some stuff which could make things difficult for him, but nothing came to his mind. My flame can also imitate complex structures, however, there is a little something which I am unable to accomplish. Yang Chen, at last, asked his question. I can only imitate motionless objects, but can't do anything about moving parts. Elder, do you have some method solve this? Once Yang Chen asked his question, Zhu Chentao's face suddenly became blank, as if he was totally stunned. His eyes immediately brightened, following which he said heavily. Yang Chen, compared to your control over fire, my hundreds of years of cultivation is equal to dog shit. These words spoken by a Zhanxian stage expert immediately made Shen Da, Holin, Tingyuan and Gu Qin turn lifeless. If a Zhanxian stage expert, moreover a fire-attributed Zhanxian expert, says that his hundreds of years of cultivation of fire arts are equal to dog shit, what does this make them? Even inferior to dog shit. However, hearing these words, Yang Chen's face revealed traces of a forced smile. He had aroused Zhu Chentao's interest in him just so that he can have a hidden protective layer within the Pure Yang Palace and at the same time have the other elders also pay more attention to him, but not in order to make Zhu Chentao evaluate himself this way. In case other people heard this, it would give rise to many unknown troubles. The cultivation world is not completely formed from good-natured people. Who knows how many people, envious and jealous of other success, like Chu Hang, there are in the Pure Yang Palace. Who, to curry favor and make friends with disciples related to the greatest sky sect, did everything he could. How can his temperament be proper? Furthermore, not even within the sect does everyone live a tranquil and tempered life in harmony with everyone. At the moment, the cultivation resources are not at all enough to satisfy the extravagance of all cultivators. This means that everyone has to struggle over the resources within the sect. And in some sects, when a disciple brimming with talent appears and lets his guard down, he wouldn't even know why and when he suddenly died. In the case that Zhu Chentao's assessment of Yang Chen was to spread, even if Yang Chen just stayed in his courtyard and never left, he would still not be able to ensure that he will not suffer any damage. After all, with just the strength of a first Kai layer disciple, he can at most handle an ordinary disciple of the fourth Kai layer, like Shen Da's son Haijing, but if an expert appears, he would absolutely have to bear the consequences. Even if he had defeated that assassin last time, that was just because he had underestimated Yang Chen and didn't expect him to have this kind of killing intent. If the other party had used his full strength from the start, Yang Chen would have already died without leaving anything behind. Nobody said anything. The whole scene had turned silent for a good while. Just then, Zhu Chentao seemingly managed to recover from his lament. Seeing Yang Chen's complexion, he immediately became aware that his recent words could cause those kinds of troubles for Yang Chen. Thinking about it, he immediately said heavily. You 4 people, you haven't heard anything recently and neither have you seen anything. You all wait outside for both of us, okay? As soon as they heard these words, all 4 servants understood what needed to be done. If after being servants for several years, they still didn't have the ability to make discerning judgments like this, then all of their experience was in vain. All 4 servants loudly swore on their heart's devil and not daring to stay at the sight of these 2 people anymore, one by one asked to be excused. Only when Yang Chen and Zhu Chentao were the 2 people remaining, Zhu Chentao excitedly said. So fire can actually be used as a toy like this, what do you think about it? Naturally, Yang Chen did not inform him that this fire of his was learned from a heavenly court's great character 10,000 years in the future, and also that this had been the passed on experience of people specialized in playing with fire, including the fire attributed heavenly lord and the 28 constellations, so he merely smilingly said. I was also not aware which way to cultivate, Manager Zhanxian had said to train my control over fire, so I immediately used this kind of method to train my skills with fire. Still, I didn't know whether this was correct or not. Hearing elders' praise, it seems this training was not a mistake. Training was a mistake. Zhu Chentao glared at Yang Chen, then laughingly said. Originally, I believed that I would always remain at the Jidan stage, but as a result of this sort of display, I once again have hoped to reach the realm of Yuanying. I am not your elder, you are my elder. In his cheerful mood, Zhu Chentao spoke words not very well suiting him. No matter if he was a Jidan stage expert, he still couldn't help his attention from swaying under this astonishing find, entirely unfitting for the demeanor of a Jidan stage expert, and Yang Chen's words were already beginning to put aside their status as elder and junior. Seeing Yang Chen's forced smile, Zhu Chentao patted Yang Chen's shoulder to soothe him. Be relieved. Only the palace master and I are aware about you right now, all others don't know the exact details. In the future, your Shunkai pill will be my Pyongyang Palace's secret weapon, you will refine them, and the palace will receive them. Be at ease, if you demand crystal stones, you will get crystal stones, if you ask for contribution points, you will receive contribution points. Furthermore, about that problem of yours, how to make the fire able to imitate animate objects, a short while ago, I did not know how to answer you. Even though Zhu Chentao was feeling complacent, he hadn't forgotten the problem raised by Yang Chen. Based on my experience, there are two possibilities. One is that your magic power cultivation is not sufficient, the other is that your spiritual awareness is lacking. First, you keep on practicing this way, when I return again, I will think about it and then answer you. Many thanks, elder. Yang Chen nodded within his heart. In fact, Zhu Chentao's words showed precisely where his present problem was located. Zhu Chentao had proved his 100 years of experience of playing with fire, if just based on the experience he is able to discern these problems. Although this was not the crucial point of the problem, but once Zhu Chentao goes back and researches about it, he will surely understand the mystery. There are many things which are just like paper tigers. Once pierced through, there will be no more secrets. However, Zhu Chentao's words about keeping everything a secret made him feel quite relieved. As long as he does not want to gain a reputation as a cultivation talent, but rather as a pill concocting expert, his treatment will certainly be very different. People are not fond of offending a pill concocting master, even demons feel the same way. For the person who can probably save their lives or who can help in increasing their cultivation, the majority of the people in the cultivation world would like to curry favor with him. Who knows when would they have to seek his help? What are you thanking me for? I should thank a talented person like you. Zhu Chentao waved his hand strongly in disagreement, without showing even a bit of the airs of being a Jidan stage expert. While speaking, he creased his brows. Only, how to thank you? And, how about this old man receives you as an apprentice, my own direct disciple, how about this? These words startled Yang Chen. He hadn't expected Zhu Chentao to provide him this kind of great gift. There were many benefits to becoming Zhu Chentao's own direct disciple. If such a thing were offered to any other person of Nine Earth Manor, to all of them, this would be a happy occasion, as if they had reached heaven in a single bound. But there is one problem. After his rebirth, Yang Chen had only wished to pay his respects to his own beautiful master. Elder, this is not in compliance with the rules, you should not break Pyongyang Palace's rules just for my sake. Yang Chen hastily thought of some excuses. However, soon after he noticed that this can only stall for the time being. When he reaches foundation stage he will be faced with this question once again, so he honestly and sincerely said. Furthermore, this disciple also wants to learn a few things other than concocting pills at the Pyongyang Palace. These words are precisely a tactful rejection. Zhu Chentao had hundreds of years of experience, how could he not understand this? But forcing someone is not good. A Jidan stage expert still often needs to obtain permission. Laughingly he said. Since this being the case, then I will owe you one, seek me if you need anything. Furthermore. While speaking, Zhu Chentao fished out a pill furnace from his Qianqin pouch and placed it in front of Yang Chen. Your pill furnace is extremely inferior, this one is a present for you. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 32 Pill Furnace Magical Tool. This was a furnace which I purchased in an auction before reaching the Jidan stage when I was traveling the world. Although it's a low-quality furnace, it just so happens that it can handle your fire arts method and display it to the pinnacle. Zhu Chentao glanced at the furnace which he had presented with a satisfied look and said. I already have the highest quality furnaces, you, however, are roughly at the right stage to use this pill furnace and can improve your pill concocting skills. Many thanks, Elder, for your generous grant. To refuse would be impolite of this disciple. As soon as Yang Chen took a quick look at the furnace, his face immediately revealed a smiling expression, so without declining, he immediately exclaimed his gratitude. Zhu Chen Tao, seeing him accept it, frankly became quite delighted. Compared to the help in finding the path to Yuanying cultivation, giving this low-grade pill concocting furnace seemed almost too trivial. Luckily he had already granted a favor to Yang Chen, this had let his heart be a little more at ease. About the Shunkai pill, you absolutely cannot tell others about it, particularly the refining method. Before he left, he repeatedly warned Yang Chen about this. He had just recently witnessed Yang Chen's perfect control over fire, so now he hurriedly returned to ponder over it and experiment. To stay until now was just to give face. Waiting until Zhu Chen Tao could not be seen anymore and his silhouette had faded away, only then a smile appeared on Yang Chen's face, as if he had gained the world's most precious treasure. He very carefully held the pill furnace which Zhu Chen Tao had left behind in his hands and began to inspect it from top to bottom. The more carefully he observed it, the brighter the smile on his face became. Po Lin had quietly come in, but just at that time she saw Yang Chen rejoicing while holding the pill furnace in his hands. She didn't dare to disturb him and instead quietly moved back and left the room. A pill furnace left behind by a Jidan stage expert can absolutely make a first Kai layer disciple, who has the fire attribute, abnormally excited. Other people were not aware, but Yang Chen had discovered something regarding the pill furnace, which made him so excited that he was even drooling incessantly. This pill furnace he had before his eyes, even if the color or shape was different, was quite similar to a specific pill furnace which he had heard about in his previous life. A pill furnace, which reportedly was discovered in this mortal world. Profound spirit furnace. In his previous life, this was an extraordinary furnace even within the heavenly court, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it practically ranked within the top 10. From what Yang Chen had heard, all kinds of elixirs can be refined by this profound spirit furnace. This is the only furnace apart from the 8th divinity furnace of the Great Supreme Elder, which can accomplish this. Even the other furnaces ranked higher than this profound spirit furnace have their limitations. Most are incapable of refining all types of elixirs. The profound spirit furnace, however, doesn't have this type of restriction, the reason being the unique characteristics of the profound spirit furnace. Initially, this profound spirit furnace was not a top-notch furnace, rather it was just a furnace embryo. Only after being used for refining by thousands of masters and seeing varieties of flames was it able to become a first-rate furnace. Frankly speaking, this profound spirit furnace is a pill concocting furnace that can be upgraded. Only the things required to evolve it are comparatively extraordinary. Apart from the special materials required for a pill concocting furnace, this profound spirit furnace still requires absorbing various sorts of flames. Only then it will be able to upgrade. Presently, within Yang Chen's hands, it was very possibly just a pill furnace embryo, yet to be discovered by the almighty pill concocting master from his previous life. This profound spirit furnace was made by an expert, but he only finished half of it because he didn't even have the proper materials. Even the creator himself didn't know whether his ideas were feasible or not, therefore, he roughly manufactured the furnace embryo and abandoned it afterwards. Even after this profound spirit furnace's performance was still equivalent to a low-grade spirit furnace. Holding the furnace within his hands, Yang Chen scanned it with his spiritual awareness several times and put in his spirit power to check how closely it resembled that profound spirit furnace. Yang Chen did not dare to believe that all of a sudden he would have the kind of good luck to receive this kind of legendary pill concocting furnace. Thinking about this, Yang Chen's hands began to tremble a little, as if a large meat pie had fallen from the heavens and landed directly in his hands. However, Yang Chen also realized that this profound spirit furnace was at the earliest stage. If placed in the hands of someone who doesn't know what it is, it would only be a low-grade furnace. Who would be willing to waste the highest quality materials just for a low-grade pill furnace? Who would be willing to part with those precious flames just to have them spoiled on a low-grade pill furnace? No need to speak of regular people, didn't even the Jidan stage Zhu Chen Tao also just consider this profound spirit furnace as a waste and directly give it to Yang Chen. In any case, as long as Yang Chen has the opportunity to obtain the top-notch materials or possibly obtain a precious flame source, he would directly use it on the furnace. Although he was not absolutely sure, Yang Chen had already recognized this pill concocting furnace's characteristics, so he was at least 80% confident. No matter what was said, this was still a low-grade pill concocting furnace. Compared to Yang Chen current furnace without a grade, it was many folds better. Even if it was low grade, it could still be included within the ranks of magic tools. If only considering Yang Chen's strength of the first Kai layer, he wouldn't even be able to obtain any kind of magic tool and could only use some talisman tools and talisman gems without any grade. Taking advantage of his good spiritual awareness, which was already comparable to a mid-level foundation stage expert, he could at least properly bind the profound spirit furnace. Using his spiritual awareness to mark the furnace, he tried to bind it to himself. If Yang Chen allowed the profound spirit furnace in his hands to go to others, it would certainly be a truly foolish move. Therefore, without even the slightest hesitation, Yang Chen began to bind the profound spirit furnace. Formidable spirit power started to bind the profound spirit furnace and began to carve its mark in the furnace's nucleus. Although his spiritual awareness was very formidable, his spirit power was still quite lacking, so to complete these affairs, Yang Chen still spent an entire day's time. Shen Da and other servants didn't dare to disturb him, they were aware that Yang Chen was attempting to refine that pill furnace. Although they had little hope in their hearts, they still did not dare say anything, only feeling a little dejection within their hearts while waiting for Yang Chen to appear. After spending an entire day and night, Yang Chen finally succeeded in marking the profound spirit furnace. Until Yang Chen's formidable spiritual awareness had carved his own mark inside the profound spirit furnace, he did not dare to believe that he was already in possession of one of future top 10 furnaces of the imperial court. Carrying a perfectly satisfied smiling expression, Yang Chen happily walked out of the pill concocting room. He could not help but rejoice. Even in his previous life, when he was a Principle Golden Immortal, he wasn't even able to touch a magic tool of this status. On the doorway, Shen Da, Holin, Ting Yuan and Gu Qin, all 4 people, had formed a neat row of 2 people on each side, waiting for Yang Chen to come out. Seeing him come out, all 4 had a cheerful look and at the same time also had a faint hint of expectation in their eyes. Yang Chen didn't say any nonsense, he was well aware what they wanted to know, so while smiling gently, he said. The pill furnace was not bad. Oh, and by the way, whatever attribute you are, you all can't train in accordance with my method to control any of the 5 phases. Moreover, it also has great advantages for tempering your spiritual awareness. The 4 servants were elated. They had been waiting here precisely to ask about whether a method similar to Yang Chen's could also be used for the cultivation of other attributes, aside from the fire attribute. Although they had some speculations regarding this, receiving a confirmation made them utterly delighted. The future path of cultivation for these few was immediately determined. After resting for a moment, Yang Chen immediately ordered Holin to come to the pill concocting room. At the moment Yang Chen's cultivation was quite lacking, so controlling the flame to refine herbs for concoction was impossible for him alone, and he could only depend on Holin for help. This was exactly the opportunity that Holin had been looking for. Having recently bound profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen could not resist using this furnace to refine the Shunkai pill, so he first tested this pill furnace. Since it was already decided that he would use this profound spirit furnace for the rest of his life, naturally Yang Chen would begin to take good care of it. Apart from using the best materials to refine it and to seek a flame to be absorbed, the other means to take good care also include raising the amount of medicinal Kai. How do you increase the medicinal Kai? By concocting lots and lots of pills. Regardless of what sort of elixir it is, all elixirs use a variety of drug ingredients. The more these varieties of herbs are refined, the more medicinal Kai they leave behind. The pill furnace is also able to balance these varieties of medicinal Kai better and better, and only then can it achieve the purpose of any furnace which produces pills. Magic tool. When Holin saw Yang Chen taking out the furnace, she recognized that it was a magic tool within the time it took for the pill furnace to reach the height of half a person from being palm-sized and didn't conceal the slightest bit of her envious expression. Cultivate properly, and in the future you will also get a chance to acquire one. Yang Chen smiled without saying too much. He just indicated to Holin to prepare the herbs for refining. Such a large pill furnace naturally can make even more elixirs. Yang Chen asked Holin to prepare 10 times more herbs. Afterward, he held the 2 handles of the pill furnace and began to manipulate the flame. As his cultivation was very low, he had no way to use his spiritual awareness leisurely to control both the flame and the furnace at the same time, so he could only use his hands to grip the furnace. As the flame appeared, Yang Chen immediately sensed the ferociousness of the profound spirit furnace. Even if it was low-grade magic tool, it was still a magic tool. Compared to Yang Chen's original worn-out furnace, it was simply a difference of heaven and earth. No matter whether it was manipulation of fire or the quantity of the flame, using this profound spirit furnace was 2 to 3 times better compared to his original pill furnace. Even Yang Chen had a sort of feeling that this pill furnace had a flesh and blood relation with him. It was as if the furnace was aware of what Yang Chen wanted to do. All herbs were added in one by one, and within the blink of an eye, they turned into medicinal liquid. Soon, the medicinal liquid started flowing along the spiral structure formed from the flames and began to solidify. Everything was same as in the previous refining session, without the least bit of difference. Only the quantity of herbs used was increased by 10 times, and also Yang Chen didn't feel as strained as before. After 1 hour, a whole 1000 Shunkai pills were successfully collected by Yang Chen using his pill collecting technique. The entire process was incomparably smooth. Yang Chen also did not waste any time. Previously he didn't have a very good method to earn the sex contribution points, but now Zhu Chentao had already left behind orders to collect those pills in exchange for crystal stones or contribution points as he wishes. So Yang Chen directly went to Nine Earth Manor's medicine hall and asked the medicine hall's disciple to exchange them all for contribution points. Either Zhu Chentao was very generous or maybe because it was related to the palace master, but Zhu Chentao directly allowed Yang Chen to get 1 contribution point for 1 Shunkai pill, when originally 12 low-grade spirit stones could only be exchanged for 1 contribution point. It is important to know that the Shunkai pill was made up of ordinary herbs, so the cost of the production could be neglected. Yang Chen didn't waste even a single point and directly handed it over to the hidden pavilion in exchange for reading time. The next day, apart from cultivating at the usual time, Yang Chen spent all day within the hidden pavilion. In his previous life, Yang Chen's training in fire-attributed cultivation had already reached the extent other people could not fathom. He didn't have a thorough understanding of the other elements, though, only a few insights which he had gained during his fights, but they were totally unrelated to training. Yang Chen was also not able to achieve anything this way, so he could only depend on the sex ancient records for assistance. Although the Nine Earth Manor's hidden pavilion is only intended for Kai layer disciples, it still possesses a lot of ancient records. Just the number of cultivation methods suitable for Kai layer disciples alone would number several hundreds. Adding in many ancestors' cultivation experiences, lessons, the ancient records just in the field of cultivation, it would number over 10,000 jade slips. If the knowledge and experience regarding pill concocting, refining tools, talismans, spell methods and other various sorts of classes were counted as well, the number of jade slips just in the hidden pavilion of Puryang Palace's Nine Earth Manor alone would reach into the hundreds of thousands. In general, when the Kai layer disciples enter the hidden pavilion, they are all divided and marked according to their requirements. Usually, they just wanted to find a suitable cultivation method and then look for cultivation methods which were written with the ancestors' experiences and lessons. People like Yang Chen who pick up every jade slip and attentively read it once are truly unique. Many people looked at Yang Chen acting this stupidly and shook their heads without saying anything. Many were also delighted at his silliness, but no one called out to warn him. Apparently they were all waiting for Yang Chen to make a fool out of himself. Gu Heng naturally heard of Yang Chen's activity in the hidden pavilion and instantly understood his aim. Yang Chen was certainly having some problems regarding cultivation, but he couldn't ask the merit transferring disciple, who was Chu Heng, for guidance. As a result, he went to the hidden pavilion to find the solution. However, Yang Chen's actions also allowed Chu Heng to lower his guard. A first Kai layer disciple who spent every day staying at hidden pavilion and was not properly cultivating, what kind of future prospects could he possibly have? There was absolutely no need to suppress him. Reading such a disordered mess of ancient records, he would surely destroy himself. At the first Kai layer, he wants to master all them. Who does Yang Chen think he is? A advanced stage expert. However, without caring for others' opinions, Yang Chen eagerly read these ancestors' experiences every day. Using his experience as a Principle Golden Immortal, he could naturally differentiate the correct ones from the incorrect ones. Very quickly he gained an intuitive understanding towards the properties of the other attributes. When he did not have sufficient contribution points for staying in the hidden pavilion, he would immediately concoct a furnace full of Shunkai pills. This much was enough for him to stay within the hidden pavilion for several days. This kind of lifestyle lasted for half a year, and during this time, Yang Chen had read the greater part of jade slips within the hidden pavilion. Just when Yang Chen had put down a jade slip and was about to pick up another one, a faint sigh of regret suddenly came from behind him. Younger disciple Yang, reading like this will have no use. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 33 finally finished with the hidden pavilion. A lot of disciples came to the hidden pavilion, more than 100 people every day. Many of them didn't have any business here, but just wanted to look at Yang Chen's obsessed appearance and would roam in Yang Chen's surroundings daily. Because this had become a habit for Yang Chen, the people close to him did not mind it much. In any case, everyone who entered the hidden pavilion was a servant or disciple of the Puryang Palace, so they were not allowed to exchange blows here. He also took no notice of other people, and thus, others also didn't try to look for him. Therefore, Yang Chen did not pay any attention to whoever was near him and was solely engrossed in scanning the jade slips one by one using his spiritual awareness. However, the voice made Yang Chen sluggish as he was recalling some warm memories from the bottom of his heart. In his previous life, when Yang Chen was in the Nine Earth Manor, this was the voice which cared for him, and after his rebirth, Yang Chen had thought only of his master and forgot the warm sensation he had initially sensed. Turning his head, Yang Chen looked at the owner of that voice. And exactly as in Yang Chen's memories. Well-fitted clothes with a finely crafted hem on her skirt and a calm look in her eyes, with an exceptional complexion, similar to a fairy in a mythology, people stopped behind Yang Chen's body, as if they were in a trance. Zhanxian Senior Apprentice Sister. After addressing her loudly, all of a sudden Yang Chen was at a loss for words, not knowing what to say and just silently stood, rooted to the ground. Junior Apprentice Brother Yang, this kind of random, impure reading is likely going to affect your cultivation. Zhanxian Ling, looking at the junior apprentice brother whose name she had constantly heard recently, advised with good intentions. However, at that moment, Yang Chen's mind had already returned to his previous life and the memories of Zhanxian Ling started appearing bit by bit. In every sect, some genius disciples brimming with talent would appear, and certainly Zhanxian Ling was one of those genius disciples. Only the cultivation world was utterly cruel, and under the fierce competition, a lot of these gifted disciples have perished due to various reasons. This was also the reason why Yang Chen did not want Zhu Chentao to reveal his talent. And so in his previous life, Zhanxian Ling was precisely a genius disciple who had died. However, the reason for her death was not because of other people, but rather when she was on the verge of ascending, she failed and ended up disappearing like scattered ashes and dispersed smoke. Yang Chen's impression of her was not as clear as that of Shi Qian and Sun King Shu because of her premature death in the mortal world. Still, during Yang Chen's cultivation in his previous life, senior apprentice sister Zhanxian Ling had guided him many times. At that time, Yang Chen had only been an ordinary disciple, but Zhanxian Ling was a direct disciple. Even when Yang Chen was in trouble once, Zhanxian Ling had saved him. At his master's sect, apart from his master, at least, half of the warmth Yang Chen had received within the sect was due to Zhanxian Ling. Saving his life and other favors, the affairs of those days, although they hadn't happened yet, naturally Yang Chen could not allow the disaster of those days to be repeated since he had already found Zhanxian Ling. Zhanxian Ling had an excellent earth-attributed spirit root. As for how good, Yang Chen did not know the specifics, but he remembered that Zhanxian Ling had become an outer disciple in 1 year, had reached foundation stage in 10 years, later on in less than 80 years, she had entered the ranks of Jedan experts, afterwards, within 100 years. She had reached the Yuning stage and within 500 years the Dacheng stage. At that time, Yang Chen had merely stepped into the mid-Jedan stage. Even the matter of Yang's eye putting false charges on him had not happened yet. At the moment, it could be assumed that Zhanxian Ling's natural talent is rather good, not the least inferior to Shi Qian and Sun King Shu. Even Yang Chen had started to doubt whether Zhanxian Ling really had an earth-attributed spirit root. Junior Apprentice Brother Yang. Junior Apprentice Brother Yang. Zhanxian Ling saw Yang Chen blankly staring at her without speaking and became somewhat angry. A lot of people were infatuated with her charm, Zhanxian Ling understood this very clearly, however, she had good intentions when warning Yang Chen, but seeing him bluntly stare at her, she was really not pleased. Sorry, senior apprentice sister Zhanxian, I was thinking about some small matters and was a little absent-minded. When Yang Chen heard Zhanxian Ling's voice, he managed to wake up. Based on Yang Chen's temperament, only memories of the past could cause him to make such a mistake, otherwise, it was impossible for him to be so absent-minded. Perhaps, Zhanxian Ling had a place deep down in Yang Chen's heart. Hearing Yang Chen's respectful reply, not trying to conceal his absent-mindedness, made Zhanxian Ling's opinion of him a little more favorable. In a calm voice she started giving pointers to Yang Chen. Junior apprentice Brother Yang, you're looking at so many jade slips randomly, it won't benefit your cultivation in any way. Many thanks senior apprentice sister, for thinking about me. Yang Chen hastily cupped his hands to express his thanks. At this point, he could clearly distinguish between his own good and bad. However, Zhanxian Ling didn't say much, and seeing Yang Chen express his thanks, she bluntly turned around to leave, only leaving behind a single sentence. You better work hard. Watching Zhanxian Ling's charming figure leave, as if obsessed, Yang Chen stayed at his current position without any movements. On the following day, without restraining himself by following Zhanxian Ling's advice, he once again went to the hidden pavilion and started reading the jade slips one by one. Spending 2 more months on this, at last, Yang Chen had finally gone through all of the jade slips once. Yang Chen in his previous life would always assiduously cultivate to reach the foundation stage and would only go to the hidden pavilion just to look for fire-attributed cultivation methods. How could he have this kind of leisure to read all the jade slips in the hidden pavilion once? There were over 100,000 jade slips. Reading an average of 500 jade slips every day took 200 days of time from beginning to end. Within these days, Yang Chen had unbeknownst to him acquired the nickname of a bookworm. Almost the entire Nine Earth Manor had become aware that Yang Chen had this kind of character. Apart from third fire, fourth fire cultivation method, the rest of the first tree, second tree, fifth earth, sixth earth, seventh metal, eighth metal, ninth water, 10th water cultivation method had changed Yang Chen entirely already. The effects of changing were even better for the 8 types of cultivation method. Previously, to collect all of the bits to make the whole 5 phases of yin and yang, he could do nothing but collecting the cultivation methods of different types without thinking about the effects, but now, finally, he had found suitable cultivation methods. The results could be seen immediately when the yin and yang 5 phases secrets began to move. When compared to those previous cultivation methods, the changed ones had a very smooth feeling to them. Additionally, because of these cultivation methods, Yang Chen's knowledge of other attributes cultivation methods had also increased by a lot. Reading as many jade slips as he had, Yang Chen had naturally benefited from them. Even at the Kai layer, he had come to realize the spirit power of the 5 phases. Adding to that Yang Chen's knowledge regarding the fire attribute, it was like removing the weeds and keeping the flower. Yang Chen had become even more knowledgeable towards the 5 phases secrets. About the knowledge he could not gain, reading it again would be useless. He could only depend on himself to find the answers. After all, what's written in these books is other people's knowledge. Yang Chen must do is to grab it and convert it into his own. The bookworm Yang Chen had come out of the hidden pavilion and was also not going in anymore. Suddenly, this news had spread wildly across the whole Nine Earth Manor. Every day when Yang Chen was reading, a group of people would be forming around the scene, looking at him like he was a clown, giving a performance. Wherever Yang Chen went, he found these kinds of looks. Occasionally, a few of them did not contain this kind of ridicule, but were instead filled with regret or perhaps confusion. But the entire Nine Earth Manor wasn't able to find out what he wanted to do. But Yang Chen did not pay any attention to that. Instead, according to his old habits, apart from circulating the Kai through his whole body once a day, he just stayed in his tiny courtyard, meditating, quietly pondering and digesting the large amount of information he had learned from the library of the hidden pavilion. Perhaps in his past life, his knowledge was too much centralized around fire-attributed cultivation. When Yang Chen's mind was submerged in concentrating on each and every aspect, even if he only had the experience of the first Kai layer, it would still have broadened Yang Chen's horizons. With regards to the comprehension of the yin and yang 5 phases secrets, it had increased even more. 1 month later, just as Yang Chen came out of his half-secluded pondering, he immediately saw Sun Haijing. On Sun Haijing's face was a clear expression of schadenfreude. He looked at Yang Chen as if he was watching a dead person. "Junior apprentice brother Yang, congratulations." Sun Haijing looked at Yang Chen with a fake smile and said. "Master says since junior apprentice brother Yang has the status of a 3rd Kai layer disciple, in accordance with the rules, you can immediately go out to learn through experience. Elder disciple Sun is being considered." Yang Chen paid absolutely no attention to Sun Haijing's words, merely refuting them. Mei goes out to learn through experience. Again, it is not compulsory to go travel. Perhaps elder disciple Sun wants to go very much. Sun Haijing sneered, as if he had known that Yang Chen would say this. After smiling sinisterly, he chuckled twice and then said. "Not going out as if on the point of dying, junior apprentice brother Yang, the order mentioned earlier demands that in the near future, junior apprentice brother Yang will have to go out. Congratulations junior apprentice brother Yang, you'll be like a fierce tiger in the mountains or a legendary flood dragon within the sea, you have quite grand prospects, ah." Yang Chen's brows slightly creased. Pure Yang Palace's superiors have asked him to go out to train. What is this? Could it be arranged by Chu Heng? Thinking about it, Yang Chen slightly shook his head. Chu Heng isn't bold enough to plan this kind of thing. Moreover, only the top-notch people, like the Hall Masters and the Palace Master, have the ability to order this kind of things. What does this mean? Seeing Yang Chen's expression, Sun Haijing felt so delighted within his heart, as if during the hottest of summers, someone had given him a watermelon to eat. When Yang Chen was in Nine Earth Manor, there was no good method to deal with him, but so long as Yang Chen leaves the Miking Mountain and leaves the territory under the influence of pure Yang Palace, then certainly Yang Chen would not be so unbridled. Taking his time to appreciate this moment, only then could Sun Haijing leave perfectly satisfied, but before leaving he did not forget to ridicule him, using a very sorry tone to say. "Junior apprentice brother Yang, originally I intended to wait for the day when the sex martial arts competition is held and propose a life and death challenge to you. Junior apprentice brother Yang, you are quite ferocious, surely you will not be scared of the difference between our realms. Unfortunately, the meticulously prepared talisman tools and talisman gems will be useless. Ah, what a pity. Talisman tools, talisman gems. Yang Chen sneered. Senior apprentice brother son, you seem to have forgotten that reading at the hidden pavilion requires a number of sex contribution points. These contribution points, if exchanged for crystal stones, would be a good amount. Senior apprentice brother son, if I return alive, then certainly at the time of the sex competition, I will challenge senior brother son. A flustered and exasperated expression appeared on Sun Haijing's face. Yang Chen reached out his hand to his neck, making a slashing motion. Indifferently releasing a portion of killing intent, he sarcastically said. At that time, you can at once clean this neck, just wait. I will buy a countless number of talisman tools and talisman gems to crush you to death. This kind of person incessantly schemed against him within his master's sect. Yang Chen was already determined to kill him, as he absolutely could not allow Sun Haijing to live. Influenced by Yang Chen's killing intent, Sun Haijing was startled and his whole body shuddered, his complexion became pale in a flash, he could not help but withdraw by several steps, almost tripping on the courtyard's doorstep behind him. His figure almost stumbled, and only then was he able to stand firmly. In the split second when Yang Chen's voice full of killing intent echoed in his ears, it seemed as if his soul itself had started shivering. Perhaps this excessive show-off just now had lost him too much face, so Sun Haijing stood firmly, and after several deep breaths, his face regained a trace of color. However, just like before, he was still endlessly scared. He stubbornly tried to regain his calm expression, but the muscles of his face were involuntarily trembling, absolutely unable to stabilize. Finally, he forcefully pushed down his fear, but this still took a good moment. Yang Chen did not even pay any more attention to him and had long ago started walking towards his own room. However, to regain his lost face, Sun Haijing diffidently yelled towards Yang Chen. Say that again, once you come back alive. After hastily escaping Yang Chen's small courtyard until he returned to his own room, Sun Haijing was covered with cold sweat, incessantly flowing all over him. Only after a long time was he able to calm down. Both of his hands were involuntarily trembling and his mouth kept on mumbling. Must not come back, must not come back. He was still really frightened. Yang Chen was certain that Sun Haijing had received this information from Chu Heng's place. What Yang Chen could not understand was why they wanted to send him, a disciple of the first Kai layer, outside to train. It made no sense. Yang Chen was not anxious, however. He was sure that some people will come to notify him. Sure enough, a few moments later, a person came to notify Yang Chen and lead him to the Nine Earth Manor's main hall. Here, Yang Chen saw Du Qian, whom he had not met for a long time. Furthermore, Chu Heng was also present and to his surprise, even Gongsun Ling was there. Yang Chen, to successfully cultivate, it won't do to build a cart behind closed doors. Chu Heng was speaking with an appearance of guiding him patiently and systematically, like a good teacher. It just so happens that a new period to go out and train has started, this time, you are also included. However, this time, there is a special arrangement planned for you, you must not refuse. Yang Chen looked over at Du Qian with suspicion. Of course, Du Qian was aware of Yang Chen's doubt, but he only smiled and nodded his head slightly without saying anything. Yang Chen was convinced that Du Qian would not harm him, so this was absolutely not planned by Chu Heng. Yes. Yang Chen responded without saying much. But Gongsun Ling, standing on the side, was baffled when looking at Yang Chen. For what reason could a disciple of the first Kai layer be allowed to go outside to train? Not only Gongsun Ling, but Yang Chen himself did not understand the reason. This affair was really quite surprising, he did not know what to think about these kinds of arrangements. Go back and pack, you will leave at once. Chu Heng opened his mouth again to remind him once. Yang Chen, you are a disciple whom even I think highly of, so by all means. You must not get in any accidents on the road. These words were very righteous, but Yang Chen was very clear about the meaning hidden within them. Be careful of everything when you move out. Standing on the side, Du Qian amiably warned, then, waving his hand, he said. Go and prepare, you will set out during noon. Before the second half of the 7th month, you must reach the floating mountain. While speaking, he handed a talisman to Yang Chen. If you encounter any danger on the road, then immediately unleash this talisman, your senior apprentice sister Gongsun will immediately rush to your aid. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 34 The Ancestors' Heritage. Originally Yang Chen was still suspicious about the previously mentioned request for him to go out and train, but after hearing that he would have to go up the floating mountain, all of his doubts were immediately dispelled. Actually, they asked him to go out to allow him to participate in the Heavenly General Assembly of the new disciples for every sect on the floating mountain. Thinking carefully, Yang Chen immediately thought of a reason. Perhaps, when he had killed that assassin, he had incidentally told them that he had no fear of illusions and many other things, which made the elders who wanted to gain some face for the Pure Yang Palace consider him. This was not some major event, but for Yang Chen, this was a huge opportunity. Initially, he was under the impression that he still had to stay in the Nine Earth Manor for next 3 years and only then would he be able to go out, but he hadn't anticipated that it would be so surprisingly easy. After some casual packing, Yang Chen went towards the manor's main hall to bid farewell to Chu Heng and Du Qian and then immediately set off on his first trip to training outside after entering the Pure Yang Palace. Ling was not present, supposedly she had already set off. Yang Chen was delighted that Du Qian and them hadn't asked him to journey together with Ling, otherwise, it would have been quite troublesome. The 4 servants Shen Da, Holin, Ting Yuan and Gu Qin were not allowed to leave, however. They were servants, thus before they would reach the 6 Kai lair, they were not allowed to go out and train. Free and easy by himself, when Yang Chen came out of the Nine Earth Manor, he suddenly felt like a fish who had jumped into the ocean or like a bird, flying high in the sky. Because of their increased importance, every 5 or 6 days Yang Chen would refine a furnace of Shunkai pills and deliver them to Medicine Hall. Previously in exchange for the sex contribution points, but later he had exchanged them all for crystal stones. Presently within Yang Chen's hand, there were at least 400 to 500 jin of crystal stones. After leaving the Nine Earth Manor, Yang Chen directly went to the city market at the foot of Myking Mountain. Sun Haijing, that kind of nasty person, in no way would he give up this good opportunity to kill him and would definitely make some arrangements to kill him outside. Yang Chen had gone to the city market to purchase some stuff which he could use to defend himself. Although Yang Chen was not afraid of trash like Sun Haijing, he was still only at the first Kai lair and many higher level enemies also harbored grudges against him. At the moment Yang Chen had plenty of crystal stones with him when he entered the city market, as long as he first looks for the crucial stuff and haggled slightly over the price, he could leisurely spend the money, after all, he was an expert. After staying in the city market for 3 days, until Yang Chen felt with his own spiritual awareness for certain that no one was spying on him, only then did he confidently leave the city market and start flying towards a direction other than Myking Mountain. Below Yang Chen's body was only a paper crane. This was a type of talisman tool. The whole body of a paper crane consisted of magical symbols and was processed by the magical power of a foundation stage expert. As long as the user could input the magic power, he could urge the paper crane to fly. Even though its speed was not very high, compared to walking on foot it was a lot faster. The cost of this paper crane was also quite high. Within the city market, it would cost at least around 200 liangs of crystal stone. Yang Chen had bought it together with a pile of talismans and talisman gems, taking a discount from the seller for all purchases, absolutely cost-effective. Liang equals 37.5 grams. Yang Chen was flying along the foot of the Myking Mountain, following the signs of human habitation and avoiding all the regions which people are suspicious of. After flying on this route for 2 days, he had almost left the confines of the territory of influence of the Myking Mountain. Only then did Yang Chen stop the paper crane and enter into the mountain road, disappearing without a trace. Not long after Yang Chen's silhouette faded away, a secretive group of 4 or 5 people appeared in the region where Yang Chen had gotten off of the paper crane. After looking everywhere, they conceded that they could not find him. What a crafty kid. We had come to the area of Pure Yang Palace's influence to take care of him, but how could we expect that this guy would be so careful, even using a paper crane to escape? A middle-aged man with a long scholarly beard turned around and said. Did you not say that you can find the whereabouts of this paper crane? Where is it? I have pinned my dark stitch tracking spell on that paper crane, so even if he puts it in the Qiankan pouch, it can still be found. Behind his body, a person dressed in black clothes with a shady vulture-like appearance coldly said. Causing me a loss of 50 liangs of crystal stones and only then cheaply purchasing it, don't worry, he won't be able to escape. When the man in dark clothes finished speaking, he fished out a spell disc and started casting the spell he mentioned earlier. That spell disc was similar to a compass, within its center a pointer kept spinning round and round for a while without halting. What's wrong? The person with the long, scholarly beard also looked at the strangely behaving spell disc and asked hastily. What happened? The person who looked like a vulture was also stunned for a moment. This type of condition could only occur in 2 types of situations. Either Yang Chen was nearby or they had completely lost his trail. The first situation, however, was completely impossible. Yang Chen could absolutely not leisurely cultivate in the presence of these 5 people of the 7th Kai lair, and these people would immediately sense him. They had already swept this region with their spiritual awareness several times, and they were not able to find a trace of him. Yang Chen should have had destroyed that paper crane entirely, otherwise even if it was broken, the black-clothed person's tracing spell would have been able to find it. This kind of situation certainly made all of them very suspicious. Taking the lead, the long-bearded scholar looked all around and firmly commanded. Everyone separate, he is just a first Kai layer disciple and doesn't have the ability to fly. Everyone look around in an area of 500 li and then slowly search for him before the meeting. I don't believe that he could have escaped an area of 500 li within such a short amount of time. The other four quickly agreed and dispersed at lightning speed. These few people had only collaborated for this single business opportunity. If they succeeded, every one of them would have the chance to obtain a magic tool. This was the kind of opportunity which one would only come across rarely who would still let it slip by, so everyone put in all of their strength to fulfill this task. If they were not doing this within the territory of the Pure Yang Palace, then they would have made Yang Chen suffer the consequences already much earlier. The long-bearded scholar had the highest cultivation among them, so naturally he was the leader of these few people. Opening his spiritual awareness widely, he frantically swept the surroundings once, but after he did not find anything, he started to become suspicious, so he began to carefully search the surroundings. Yang Chen hadn't walked very far away and was within the region of the spell formation. As for that paper crane, he had already put it into the achievements ring. For the enemies to discover the whereabouts of the paper crane through the achievement ring was simply an impossible matter. Looking at those dispersing people, Yang Chen sneered and without paying any attention he directly turned around. Using his fingers to do some sort of calculation, he selected a path to follow and in accordance with some sort of odd pace, he began to walk and soon completely disappeared within a spell formation. Within the spell formation, Yang Chen walked the exact number of steps he had calculated and only after spending several hours worth of effort, Yang Chen stopped on top of a large piece of empty land. On one side of the empty land was a very high cliff and below the cliff there was a conspicuous cave mouth, of which the insides were very dark, making it impossible to see what was inside. Fortunately, it still exists. Looking at this pitch-black cave entrance, a smiling expression finally appeared on his face. This cave, or using a more accurate description, this dwelling was left behind by some ancestor of the Pure Yang Palace. Theoretically, this cave dwelling would be discovered 60 years in the future, including the huge illusionary spell formation on the outside. This is the most remote part of the Myking Mountain, so most people believed that the spirit power here was quite deficient, but they were not aware that this ancestor had discovered an underground spirit vein here and had constructed this simple cave dwelling to sit extremely close to it in order to break through to the Jidan stage, condensing his yuaning. But in the end, he had suffered from failure and the dwelling was blocked due to a great spell, so not even the slightest bit of spirit power could leak out, so nobody discovered this far-off place. In the later generation, some disciple of the Pure Yang Palace was seriously hurt and had fallen down into the illusionary spell, and by lucky coincidence, he studied the spell formation intensively and only then, based on the experience of the sect teacher who had entered the illusion spell, the cave dwelling could be discovered. However, in this life, it was convenient for Yang Chen. The spiritual influence was sealed off by that great spell and had no way to leak out, so once Yang Chen came in, he was immediately able to sense that kind of boundless spirit power. This enormous spirit power also provided the unending magic power needed by the source of the illusion spell, making the land of illusions more and more powerful, and also hindered people from detecting it. From the achievement ring, Yang Chen took out the clean bottle containing the medicine garden of the Yang Mountain. Merely a line of that blue-colored liquid was left over, appearing almost as if it had dried up, but when it came into contact with the rich spiritual influence, the bottle started radiating light magnificently, and out of thin air, it began producing a sudden attraction and started gathering the spirit power in the surroundings. The blue liquid spot at the bottom of the bottle was, as far as Yang Chen was aware, indeed the spirit power absorbed and collected by the clean bottle and used to maintain the spirit power required for the medicine garden. For the herbs to grow, adequate spirit power is absolutely significant, however, it could not be too excessive, as, if it was excessive, the herbs would die. And so the clean bottle had this magical ability to absorb and store all of the spirit power in the surroundings and then later slowly release it as required by the medicine garden. Before that, the line of blue liquid at the bottom of the bottle already contained enough spirit power to support the needs of medicine garden for several years. Originally, Yang Chen had planned to come out to train after a few years and replenish the spirit power of the bottle, however at the moment he had this opportunity, both to hide from the assassins looking for him outside, as well as to collect the things left behind by the ancestor here, and at the same time he could also replenish the spirit power of the bottle. To collect the spirit power, Yang Chen himself didn't need to do anything, as long as he exposes the clean bottle to the outside, it would do everything by itself. Yang Chi tied the clean bottle to his waist and immediately entered the cave with large steps. The cave was not deep at all. In those days after discovering the spirit vein, that ancestor hadn't made any efforts to decorate the cave and had hastily placed the illusion spell to fool other people, whereas he immediately started to seal the mountain pass. Therefore, after Yang Chen entered, all he saw was a simple and crude cave. At the highest point in the cave, a night pearl was embedded, which was twinkling with yellow-colored light. This much brightness was sufficient for Yang Chen to see everything inside the cave. When he went a few feet deeper into the cave entrance, he saw an enlarged cave with a circumference of several feet. There on the ground was a mat, and on top of that mat, there was a middle-aged man wearing pure Yang Palace's apparel sitting motionlessly with both of his eyes closed. His surroundings didn't have the slightest bit of liveliness, he had already died several years ago without noticing. Junior disciple Yang Chen kowtows to the ancestor. Yang Chen didn't dare to be neglectful and bowed his head to salute the skeleton on the mat. This is pure Yang Palace's ancestor after all, and Yang Chen was of the younger generation, so performing the salute as a courtesy was a must. After paying his respects, Yang Chen carefully stood up, and only then did he move his feet forward and directly went to the middle of the area and used his earth-attributed spirit power to excavate a big square-shaped pit. Soon after that, he fished a few gigantic pieces of wood out from his Qianqin pouch. These were the good stuff prepared in the city market. Using his wood-attributed spirit power, he trimmed the gigantic wood pieces and soon bound them successfully to manufacture a durable coffin. After doing everything properly, Yang Chen very carefully moved the remains of that ancestor on the mat and placed them in the coffin. Before closing the lid of the coffin, he carefully took the Qianqin pouch from the waist of the ancestor. Again kowtowing to pay his respects to the ancestor, he placed the coffin into the recently dug out pit and buried it. Immediately in the very center of the cave, Yang Chen piled up a tombstone. From his Qianqin pouch, Yang Chen took out a highest quality heavenly blue stone and, using it like a knife, from his own memory, carved down the name of the ancestor. After inscripting that the junior disciple Yang Chen pays his respects, he stood in front of the grave. After doing this properly, he once again paid his respects and only then did he begin to carefully examine his surroundings. Actually, all of the stuff in the cave was obvious at a glance. In the center was that one black mat, in the most distant part of the cave there hung a long sword in a sheath, on either side were wooden desks. Apart from this, there was nothing else in the cave. However, Yang Chen was aware that all these ordinary-looking things, apart from the two wooden desks, were not all that simple. That black mat in itself was a complete piece of obsidian jade, carved in the shape of a mat. Placed just right at the exit of the spirit vein. The obsidian jade was always covered in moisture, and it was not only able to coagulate spirit power, but also prevented the spirit power from coming out too vigorously and cause harm to meridians. At the moment, the obsidian jade would help Yang Chen's effort in cultivation. Regarding the objects left behind by the ancestor, Yang Chen did not feel even a little guilty in his heart. A person who cultivates the immortal path has to understand the way of karma, and since Yang Chen had come in, these items now belonged to Yang Chen. As he moved the obsidian jade aside, an absolutely rich spirit power, compared to surrounding spiritual influence, rushed forth from where it previously lay. Earlier it was controlled by the obsidian jade, but now it immediately rushed out. Yang Chen was calm, however, and without hurry, he immediately placed the bottle on the vein's exit. The spirit power rushing forth was then directly absorbed by the bottle. A short while later, Yang Chen walked forward a few steps towards one side of the sheath hanging with the sword. Yang Chen only looked at it though and didn't move to take it off. His mind began to recall some memories pertaining to the sword, it had a very strange appearance. The long sword in the scabbard was actually not a sword at all, rather was a sword box, which can be treated both as a flying sword and simultaneously the tool containing a flying sword, a very good item. However, if Yang Chen tried to forcefully retrieve it without using any secret way to bind this sword box and just relied on his cultivation, he would be lucky to escape with his life. In the previous life, the pure Yang Palace even had to pay the price of a Jidan stage master to collect it. After a good moment, Yang Chen released a long sigh. He had no choice but to abandon the idea of collecting the sword for the time being. Even though this thing was important, his life was even more important. He had already gotten the obsidian jade, so he was already satisfied. Moreover, according to his experience from his previous life, this cave would remain peaceful for the next 10 years, and afterward, he would still have the opportunity to collect it. Bringing his greed under control, Yang Chen sat on the obsidian jade mat and opened the ancestor's Qianqin pouch and began to inspect the items inside. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 35, Breakthrough and Binding the Sword Box. This ancestor of the Pure Yang Palace who had died while meditating here was a peak Jidan stage expert, however he was not able to find a way to reach the Yuning stage, and thus he slowly exhausted his vitality until he had no option but to die, sitting cross-legged on this spirit vein. Within the Qianqin pouch there were no great magical potions. But this was understandable since he had died while meditating, he had used all of them to strengthen his cultivation base and assist in reaching the next realm, so using up all the magic potions was very normal. The ancestor was a sword cultivator. All of his accomplishments in cultivation were precisely contained in that sword box that is hanging on the outer wall. A scabbard with a long sword. Within the Qianqin pouch were actually a lot of cold metal essences like gold and many others, such as refining tools and materials, only, unfortunately, seeing all of these good items, Yang Chen could only sigh helplessly because, with his current cultivation, he was completely unable to make use of these. What caught Yang Chen's interest were a few jade slips in the Qianqin pouch. Picking them up one by one, he began to inspect them. Cultivating the Tao of Sword, Yang Chen did not think about it for the time being, also, the Tao of Sword was quite fierce, but definitely not as fierce as the methods passed down by the members of the Heavenly Court he had executed. Yang Chen merely swept through this jade slip with his spiritual awareness once, remembered it in his heart and for the time being placed it to the side, and then picking up another slip. To be exact, refining tools are actually refined swords. The ones within the Qianqin pouch were almost all reserved to be used for the next step in refining the sword box. After observing them, Yang Chen treated them the similar way. The next few jade slips were all related to cultivation. Included among them was also a jade slip which contained all of the experiences the ancestor had made from the beginning until he entered the Jidan stage, which was extremely hard to come by. This piece, Yang Chen was most carefully examining it, merely looking that ancestor's experience through only once before he put it down. The last remaining item was a jade slip, however, it caused Yang Chen to be pleasantly surprised. This was the most significant cultivation method within the sect, the method to cultivate and bind the sword box. After very carefully reading each and every word and line within, a smile was finally revealed on Yang Chen's face. Previously he was quite anxious that he wouldn't be able to collect the sword box for the time being, but now this problem had been resolved. The spiritual influence of the underground spirit vein was abundant and the clean bottle had already absorbed a lot of it. That single trace of the blue-colored liquid had already become much denser, however, the time required for the bottle to absorb the spirit power was very long. It was just enough time to practice the skill for binding the sword box. An enormous amount of spirit power was required to collect the sword box, and based on Yang Chen's cultivation of the first Kai layer, it was absolutely impossible for him. But since he had acquired this trick for binding, the problem became manageable. To be prepared for all eventualities, Yang Chen took out his profound spirit furnace and began to refine a simple Yang Kai pill to supplement his spirit power. This kind of elixir was utterly simple, so long as one had the strength of the second Kai layer, one could manufacture it. At the moment Yang Chen had the profound spirit furnace, adding to his ability of almost perfect fire control, this was basically not an issue. Previously, when Yang Chen had consumed the 1000-year profound Yang fruits, he had stored 2 pills in his achievement ring, so, this time, they could be used to refine the Yang Kai pill. The medicinal strength of the profound Yang fruit was too fierce, so although its effect for supplementing the spirit power was quite outstanding, it would require Yang Chen to use the reverse yin and yang, 5 phases secrets and meditate to keep it under control, which is not as good as the steady replenishment of a Yang Kai pill. In the cave, Yang Chen was unhurriedly making preparations for concocting his pills. Outside, however, the 5 people looking for Yang Chen were very agitated. The long-bearded scholar had determined that Yang Chen had not left this area and he had stationed his comrades on the road ahead to monitor, but they weren't able to discover even a trace of Yang Chen's silhouette. That Yang Chen had to have gone into hiding in this area. If the Pure Yang Palace discovers that we are at the Myking Mountain's edge and chasing to kill a disciple of theirs, we won't even be able to run. The long-bearded scholar was anxious in his heart, but his face did not show even a hint of nervousness, he was merely using some sort of communication with other people, using their spiritual awareness to pass on these words. In fact, he didn't even need to stress the importance of this issue, as the others also knew about the seriousness of this affair. Every one of them was very alert and observant, afraid to leave out any one region. However, it was as if Yang Chen had disappeared without any intention of returning. In front of everyone's eyes, he had disappeared without any trace. That guy who had claimed that he could trace the paper crane was facing even more blame for this reason. When concocting the pill, Yang Chen sat on the obsidian jade mat, and the jade mat was on top of the mouth of the spirit vein, which just so happened to restrain the clean bottle. Despite a portion of spirit power being extracted already by the bottle, what was left for Yang Chen was just right to allow him to replenish, neither too slow nor too fast. This underground spirit vein, which was enough to supply a Jidan stage expert until death while sitting in closed-door training, was naturally able to support Yang Chen in binding the sword box and provide him with the required spirit power. He had concocted the pills just to guard against any unexpected eventualities. After all, Yang Chen's current cultivation realm was very low. Even if he increased his spirit power by means of the 5 phases engendering each other, compared to a Jidan stage expert, the difference would be like a drop of water in the ocean. The peel of the 1000-year pure Yang fruit dissolved under the heat of Yang Chen's flames and turned into a medicinal liquid. The Yang Kai pill was different from the Shun Kai pill. The Shun Kai pill required Yang Chen to make his flame move like air, whereas the Yang Kai pill could be properly manufactured with just one hand, as long as he has the spirit power to purify the drug ingredients. Yang Chen had eaten 1 profound Yang fruit every day, thus, he had collected many profound Yang peels. 1 peel could be used to manufacture 10 Yang Kai pills, so even if Yang Chen would refine 200 Yang Kai pills in his furnace, refining all of these peels and making the Yang Kai pills would require at least a day and 2 nights' time. At the time when all of the profound Yang peels were used up, Yang Chen was left with 2000 Yang Kai pills. This amount of Yang Kai pills, in addition to the support provided by the underground spirit vein, would definitely allow. However, just when Yang Chen started to put away the profound spirit furnace, he unexpectedly found that there was some kind of change in the furnace. Its medicinal Kai had become a little more plentiful. Apparently it accumulates a little bit of the spiritual influence from the elixirs refined and thus becomes a little better. This profound spirit furnace, the higher the number of elixirs refined, the better its quality would become. In his last life, this sword box had become the property of Pure Yang Palace's Luminous Moon Hall's Hallmaster, after those several Yuning masters had cooperated to subdue this sword box, and he had become very famous, but unfortunately he ultimately betrayed Yang Chen's master. In this life, Yang Chen would not help the tyrant in his evil ways and set it aside for him. After practicing the technique several hundred times so that he wouldn't make a mistake while collecting the sword box, Yang Chen began his preparations for the job. The spirit power absorption rate of the clean bottle was changed by Yang Chen so that it was a little bit slower so that he could increase the speed of his replenishment of spirit power by 2 to 3 times with the help of obsidian jade mat. All of the Yang Kai pills were placed into the Qianqin pouch within his hand. This Qianqin pouch contained nothing apart from the Yang Kai pills. After all the preparations were done, he adjusted his condition to the best he could, then he finally sat upright on the obsidian jade and began to circulate his Kai. The very first thing Yang Chen had to do was to unleash his yin and yang 5 phases secrets and raise his own spirit power to the maximum. The underground spirit vein spirit power was steadily replenishing Yang Chen's meridians. The gentle spirit power allowed Yang Chen to not worry about whether the spirit power would be too much and he would have to take control of it. When he was circulating the Kai, he started mobilizing the spirit power to the limit while he sat a few steps away from the sword box to start the binding according to the secret method. The long sword which hung on the wall in its scabbard had apparently been attracted towards Yang Chen and slowly started flying away from the wall, floating to a region a few meters away from Yang Chen. As it was hanging in the air, it began to rotate. All of this looked very effortless, but Yang Chen did not dare to relax even a little. To properly use the secret method to bind it smoothly was Yang Chen's sole desire. He was very doubtful, since he had found the jade slip of the secret method within the Qianqin pouch of that ancestor. How come that the Jidan stage expert from his previous life hadn't discovered it? Perhaps, after looking at the sword box, he had at once set out to bind the sword box, but, on the contrary, was devoured and killed. Yang Chen would not make that same mistake. The secret method was very complicated and had, at least, 200 consecutive motions, where he could not make an error even on his first try. With every movement a portion of spirit power would enter the sword box, and at the same time it was invaded by Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, slowly replacing the original spiritual awareness. Yang Chen's present realm was very low, so he could only use lukewarm water to boil the frog, like grinding or other laborious methods, to slowly remove the spiritual awareness of the ancestor from the sword box and brand his own spiritual awareness on top of it to turn this magical tool into his own property. Every time spirit power would enter the sword box, it would exhaust all the spirit power Yang Chen had available. If it were not for the steady replenishment from the underground spirit vein and also those Yang Kai pills which Yang Chen took every time after the spirit power entered the sword box, perhaps Yang Chen would only be able to persist for a short time before exhausting all of his spirit power and getting devoured by the sword box. Every time the spirit power entered the sword box, it flickered with a bright light once. Every time, Yang Chen would include all of the 10 types of spirit power of the 5 phases of yin-yang, and every time the sword box would twinkle with 5 types of rays of light. Within the small cave, a colorless light began to flicker incessantly, as if the sword box had turned into a light show. Yang Chen's movements were neither very fast nor too slow, but had a constant speed. The time gaps in between were, by lucky coincidence, sufficient for him to replenish all of his spirit power and afterwards exhaust all of it once again. Under Yang Chen's precise control, all of this had become a constant cycle. The yin and yang 5 phases secrets were as effective as never before. It was as if the spirit power was completely exhausted within one breath and then replenished entirely within the next. All of his meridians were continuously waxing and waning under these kinds of circumstances, and at the same time they were also getting tempered by themselves. He had a lot of luck. To have the spirit vein, sufficient yang kai pills, and at the same time to have the crazy yin and yang 5 phases secrets. When Yang Chen had spent nearly 1000 Yang Kai pills, his body's spirit power had gone through the cycle of replenishment and exhaustion of spirit power 1000 times. Suddenly all of the meridians in his body were jolted and began to expand. It was as if his body had broken a seal. The limits on spirit power in his body had disappeared in a flash. Yang Chen thought of something and directly touched the clean bottle on the ground and once again controlled the speed to absorb the spirit power a little slower, allowing the obsidian jade to receive even more spirit power replenishment. According to his experience, Yang Chen knew that this was an indication of him entering the second Kai layer. Ascending a realm does not only affect the spirit power, but also increases the upper boundary of spirit power the meridians can hold by a little, as well as the comprehension of all kinds of laws. The later part was not a problem for Yang Chen, but even if his body was refined by an immeasurable amount of immortal blood, the boundaries could still only increase in a breakthrough, step by step. After entering the second Kai layer, not only did the speed of the yin and yang 5 phases increased, but so did the replenishment of spirit power. The upper boundary of the spirit power had also frantically risen. Apart from just adjusting the rate of the replenishment of spirit power from the spirit vein, he could now put even more spirit power into the sword box with this secret method. The results were quite obvious. The rays the sword box sent out started to become more and more clear, the speed at which it was revolving also started to slow down, and the distance to Yang Chen started to decrease. Finally, after another 1000 Yang Kai pills were consumed, the long sword and its scabbard calmly halted on top of Yang Chen's hands. All the rays of light vigorously flickered once before they disappeared completely. In Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, he had the feeling as if he was able to completely possess this sheathed longsword before his eyes. After replenishing his own spirit power, he halted all of the movements and stood up with a happy look across his entire face and both of his hands gently caressing and stroking the sword as if it were his lover. Only after having taken possession of this sword box did Yang Chen discover that this sword box had many wonderful uses. This sword box was both a flying sword as well as a receptacle at the same time and could hold hundreds and thousands of flying swords. The sword box's appearance could also change according to the owner's wishes. The previous owner was fond of the sheathed longsword appearance, therefore, it currently had the appearance of a sheathed longsword. However, Yang Chen right now was not very fond of this shape. Under Yang Chen's gentle caressing and stroking, a change started to appear on the sheathed longsword. Soon, it changed its appearance to that of the exceptionally fearful blade which he had used at the Shantai platform. Proficiently brandishing the immortal blade, a delighted expression lit up his face. This sword box was only a flying sword and a sword box which was not very complicated, but the most significant thing was that it could fuse the sword spirit with the formidable power of the flying sword and turn them into his own firepower. The sword spirit could be one or many, however Yang Chen was required to have total control over them. Even the sword box itself could still, at the time of refinement, make a few sword spell formations. When the time came to attack, the sword spell would directly draw the formidable power required from the sword spirit. At the moment, there were at least 10 flying swords which had all kinds of attributes within the sword box, however, their quality was, overall, very common. To refine a magical flying sword tool was not an easy task, even if it was that Zhanxian stage ancestor. He also was not able to manufacture hundreds of flying swords into the sword box. For Yang Chen this was not a big issue. At the time when he was at the Shantai platform, a lot of people had told him about the magical tool flying swords which they had left in the mortal world, so as long as he was able to find them he could fill the entire sword box. However, the sword spirit would not be easy to find, based on Yang Chen's present knowledge and experiences, since he had obtained this unique and unmatched sword box, it was certain that he could not randomly use some ordinary flying swords to make up the number. Only if Yang Chen's sword spirit was among the highest quality of items, then, and only then would it be of the highest quality. Naturally, it was too early to think about these things. When Yang Chen was stroking the sword box with the ghost blade's appearance admiringly, he thought within his heart about sharpening the edge of the blade. The edge of the blade of the Imperial Court's executioner should stay sharp so as to be able to chop off people's heads with ease. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 36. I give you the opportunity to speak. On the outside, the 5 assassins were still looking for him as anxiously as before. A youngster of the first Kai layer cannot suddenly disappear without leaving any trace. It wasn't that currently there were no proper techniques to hide one's breath, but rather that this kind of technique could definitely not be used by a kid at the first Kai layer. Yang Chen was still patiently waiting for an opportunity. He had to wait at least until these people got impatient and frivolous while looking for him, and then he would dispose of them. Regardless of the number of people on both sides, the difference between their realms was too great. If he met force with force, he would not be their match in any way. Having recently entered the second Kai layer and having obtained that sword box, he was very happy. The thing that made him the happiest was that he had been able to intercepted the most difficult to deal with magic tool of Luminous Moon Hall's Hallmaster, who had betrayed his teacher. That should stop him from becoming as rampant as in Yang Chen's previous life. Furthermore, Yang Chen did not intend to let go of this underground spirit vein, wishing to fulfill the requirements for spirit power to be absorbed by the clean bottle. On one hand, it could be used to grow the herbs of the medicine garden in the clean bottle, which would require large amounts of spirit power. On the other hand, it would prevent strife in the sect if the vein disappeared before it could be found in the future. Here at the very edge of the Myking Mountain, which could be considered as the region where the influence of the Pure Yang Palace was the weakest, while just ahead there was the territory of another sect. In the cultivation world there was no lack of disputes to plunder natural resources. Even in Yang Chen's previous life, after the Pure Yang Palace had taken the magic weapon, they still had to talk things over with the neighboring sect and leave this underground spirit vein for them. Since for the time being this cave was in Yang Chen's possession, he intended to keep all the things inside of it entirely for himself, including the spirit vein. Rather than another sect, it would be better if he set it aside for himself. The unrestricted clean bottle was frantically absorbing the spirit power. Usually it could completely draw out the spirit power from a circumference of 500 meters, so just concentrating on the mouth of this spirit vein was absolutely not an issue. Although Yang Chen could not refine the magic weapon at the moment, the universal treasure-raising secret could be used anywhere and anytime. In addition to that, the Great Supreme Elder had said that there were no limits on the use of this universal treasure-raising secret. In short, the more his cultivation would increase, the more frequently it could be used, and the higher would be the increase in the grade of the magic weapon. At the moment he had nothing to do, so it was the perfect time to improve the treasure. There was roughly half a year of time left before the agreed time of the mid of the 7th month, so he also didn't need to be anxious about hurrying on his journey, as there was no lack of time. Anyway, as long as the yin and yang 5 phases secrets were circulated once, that would be enough. For the rest of the time, apart from the 3 purities secrets, there was only the universal treasure-raising secret. For the whole next month, he was safely hidden inside the ancestor's illusion spell and was honing his strength. On the outside, however, those 5 assassins had almost gone mad. This youngster's presence has not been found in any other region, so surely he must be here. The long-bearded scholar had already used a paper crane to write a letter to connect with his friend far away to confirm that Yang Chen had not appeared anywhere else. We cannot go on like this. We are not able to find even his trace. What can we do? Since the black-clothed man had failed in finding the trail of that paper crane, he complained agitatedly. Even he himself did not know where the problem was, so he could only obediently listen to the instructions of the long-bearded scholar, and now that the scholar had said so, he also immediately declared his own views. We should look for that person from the Pure Yang Palace and ask him to think of a way for us. The long-bearded scholar coldly groaned and finally, no longer showing any restraint, he said. We can't find him, but could it be that the Pure Yang Palace cannot even find their own disciple? Which sect would allocate a Qiankan pouch to a disciple without a trace-seeking spell formation? We should ask him to find his own disciple and inform us. If he decides to go back on our deal and raises the price, what can we do? The black-clothed person immediately asked. If he still has the nerve to raise the price for a younger disciple at first Kai layer, unless someone gave him a life-protecting item, how could he escape from our pursuit? He already gave us false information, yet he would still dare to argue over the price with us. The long-bearded scholar had a malevolent complexion. If he dares to go too far, at worst we can separate and expose his plans to kill a disciple of same sect, and pretty soon he would be even more scared than us. This time, no one said anything. After finishing the discussion about this business, some of them rapidly departed to look for their client in the Pure Yang Palace. The rest were still monitoring the surroundings. Even if they couldn't find Yang Chen, they could still not allow him to escape. The clean bottle did not have any problems with extracting the spirit power from the underground spirit vein, finally exhausting it. Within the clean bottle, the trace of the blue-colored liquid had already turned into 4 or 5 big chunks of the liquid. This much spirit power was enough for those herbs in the medicine garden to use for even 100 years or more. After putting away the clean bottle with satisfaction in his heart, Yang Chen walked towards the mouth of the cave with a pleased expression. Cautiously thinking about something, he jumped directly from the mouth of the tunnel onto the mountain wall and settled down. Then he cast down a rock, tightly sealing the entrance to the cave, such that not even a trace of the cave mouth could be seen. He was convinced that after 10 years, when someone would charge into the illusion spell, he would also only be able to find an empty level ground and would absolutely not be able to discover that ancestor's tomb. He believed that the ancestor also wouldn't want the later generations to incessantly disturb his eternal rest. Naturally, Yang Chen was not afraid that someone would discover that he had already received that ancestor's legacy. After taking a last look and confirming that everything was flawless, he started moving away from the illusion spell with his fierce-looking blade in his hands. His luck was very good. When Yang Chen had barely walked a short distance away from the illusion spell, he discovered that at a place not very far away, some guy was indifferently spreading his spiritual awareness to look for Yang Chen. Sensing that Yang Chen had suddenly appeared, this person was apparently not able to believe his eyes, so he stared blankly at him, so stupefied that he wasn't even able to move. It was a very good opportunity. Yang Chen's killing intent emerged from his body and directly closed in on the other person's body. At the same time his body also pressed towards the enemy like an arrow, fiercely brandishing the ferocious blade within his hands at the other person in order to behead him. Even though the ferocious blade was Yang Chen's own magic tool, he did not currently have the strength to make the sword fly to kill him. After all, magic weapons could only be as good as the person using them. But even so, a magic weapon was a magic weapon, simply talking about the measure of sharpness, it could chop down any person with the strength of the foundation stage or below. As soon as he was pierced by Yang Chen's murderous spirit, the originally stunned enemy became despondent for an instant. Even though it was merely a split second, it was enough for Yang Chen to charge towards him and slash with his blade. Hacha! The assassin's head flew high and blood rushed out from the cavity formed in his neck, the headless corpse still making a few gestures with its hands and feet, but then, together with the blood rushing out of the neck, a hissing sound was heard and it fell down to the ground. Every debt has a debtor. You and I have no past grudges, nor recent hatred. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your desire to continue the business of killing me. Yang Chen put that fierce blade on his back and said this while looking at the corpse. Soon afterwards he lifted the head and, glimpsing at a certain direction, suddenly picked up and threw the body towards the direction of the illusion spell. The long-bearded scholar had his senses spread in a diameter of 10 miles, so when this person had met his fate, he immediately noticed that something had happened, so in an instant his figure disappeared from where he was originally and appeared again, hundreds of meters away. Thus with a few flickers he appeared at the side of his companion's corpse. The scholar had come over very quickly, but another one of his companion was even quicker. Yang Chen had finished speaking after killing the person, and immediately afterwards he started turning, but before he could even turn his head, he immediately jumped towards the illusion spell. Within a second his figure disappeared between rocks, and immediately after that, someone else appeared, only to look after the disappearing Yang Chen. However, just this glimpse already determined the position where Yang Chen had hidden. At the entrance of illusion spell, in a diameter of 10 meters around it, 5 people had exhaustively searched this place, using their spiritual awareness to scan, but they were basically unable to find anything. As the traces Yang Chen left behind when he dodged were fading, the assassin suddenly appeared at that spot. When the middle-aged scholar appeared, he looked at his companion, made a hand gesture, and afterwards immediately disappeared. Not only was the cultivation of the long-bearded scholar the highest, but his thinking was also very deliberate. He clearly understood his comrade's signal, so, after giving the signal, the comrade spotted Yang Chen's silhouette and went inside to chase and kill him. His biggest worry at the moment was to find the trace of Yang Chen. As long as he was able to find him, he did not worry about getting rid of him. An assassin at the 7th Kai layer with ample experience could easily get rid of a 1st Kai layer disciple, right? Right after his comrade had gone inside to chase after Yang Chen, the complexion of the scholar suddenly changed greatly. Under his foot was his comrade's corpse. How could he be so careless? Since people disappear once they enter, surely it had to be an illusion spell. If Yang Chen could move around freely in that illusionary spell and furthermore could also hide himself from the collective spiritual awareness of the 5 people and get rid of their companion, then what would happen to his companion who had hastily charged into that illusion spell? As if to confirm the thoughts of the scholar, his thoughts were about to come true because suddenly a bloody head without a body appeared, seemingly thrown highly towards his direction, falling a few meters away from him. With a bang sound it dropped to the ground with a few rolls, his two eyes still widely open, a shocked expression spread across his entire face. This act made the long-bearded scholar feel a chill across his entire body. Who could have imagined that a 7th Kai layer and an 8th Kai layer assassin chasing to kill a 1st Kai layer disciple, two of them had unexpectedly been killed already and furthermore, within a few breaths of each other. Even though the other person was shielded by an illusion spell, it was still too shocking. The second comrade who was killed had a 3-sun gown on his body, which had been processed through a foundation stage master's refining tool. Although it was lacking compared to a magic tool, it was still a gown that had the defense of the foundation stage, but to be unable to bear this person's attack in such a short time, what kind of weapon had Yang Chen used? The flying sword. That was absolutely impossible. If a cultivator at the 1st Kai layer could use flying sword, then all the higher Kai layer cultivators in the whole world should hit themselves on head. Even if it was a foundation stage expert, could he guarantee that he definitely possessed a flying sword? Naturally, a flying sword is not a talisman tool, so apart from those outstanding disciples of the great sects who can have their master bestow them a flying sword, how could ordinary disciples obtain a flying sword without heaven-defying luck? Surely Yang Chen had a weapon with powerful attack. It was very possibly a talisman tool or a talisman gem. After a momentary shock, this is what the scholar thought of. Once he killed Yang Chen, he could obtain that talisman gem. As soon as he thought of this, the long-bearded scholar suddenly formed some expectations as he even urgently looked forward to killing Yang Chen, regardless of anything, and charged directly in the direction in front of him. The black-clothed person had also promptly managed to come over, only he was quite far, so he arrived even later, taking even more time, only to come across a headless corpse and the two heads of his companions, as well as the long-bearded scholar, standing some distance away from the corpse. Looking at this, black-clothed man originally thought to say something, but he only opened his mouth and didn't say anything. "Come out, youngster, I will cut your body into 10,000 different parts." The long-bearded scholar calmly waited for a moment, but nothing happened, so he attacked at last. At the same time, gold-colored rays radiated from both of his hands and charged towards the region where Yang Chen had disappeared. That was an illusionary spell laid out by a Jidan stage expert. It was impossible for an attack by a trifling Kai layer disciple to shake it. The golden rays started shining even more brightly and attacked, but all of the attacks disappeared like a clay ox entering the sea without making any great waves. The black-clothed person vigilantly rose to the sky and slowly neared the top of the spell formation, hovering in the sky to monitor what was happening below. He was a very clever person to take away an enemy's strength. A disciple of the 1st Kai layer would surely not have the ability to fly. Moreover, looking at the two heads on the ground, it was clear that the enemy had closed in on them before getting rid of them, so in other words, as long as he was in the sky, he was invincible. The long-bearded scholar saw what the black-clothed scholar was doing and clearly understood what he was thinking. Subsequently, his body also rose into the air, still in the same place as before, but somewhere above and not too close to the ground. Nothing happened at this side of the illusion spell, but those two did not dare to relax and were constantly on alert, gazing fixedly towards that one place, as if facing a great enemy. Already prepared with their most powerful talisman tools within their hands, so as soon as Yang Chen appeared, a thunderous sound rang out immediately. Suddenly, something flashed at the edge of the illusion spell and a lone figure came out. That was precisely Yang Chen. The black-clothed man was elated and was just about to launch his attack when suddenly the scenery before his eyes changed into the inside of a large hall with a circular domed roof. The black-clothed person was distracted for a moment but immediately realized that he had fallen into the illusion spell. Unexpectedly, this Yang Chen, in spite of everything, still had this kind of skill with spell formation, but he felt that apart from this illusion spell, Yang Chen did not have any powerful killing spell and thus recklessly moved forward 2 steps. Only to hear a whooshing sound over the top of his head, but before he could manage to respond to that sound, 49 raised flying swords dismembered his entire body. Seeing the viciousness of the guarding spell of the medicine garden made Yang Chen feel pity for him. The long-bearded scholar was quite far from him, however, so he had no way to reach him with the spell. The long-bearded scholar could see Yang Chen's figure clearly and was just about to say something when he suddenly heard the sounds of repeated crashing, after which a batch of flesh came falling down from the sky. He turned pale with fright and was just about to flee, but when he saw Yang Chen standing motionlessly, rooted to the same place, the scholar understood the crux of the situation in a flash. Yang Chen had surely used some secret formation. To kill a 7th Kai layer cultivator, he would absolutely have to pay some considerable cost. While he was thinking this, blood spouted from Yang Chen's mouth. This was the best opportunity for him to kill Yang Chen. "Do you still have anything to say?" Long-bearded scholar laughed maliciously. "I will give you the opportunity to speak." "Really?" Yang Chen suddenly drew back the corners of his mouth and smiled, without a care about the bloodstain at the edge of his mouth. Then I will certainly speak. You? Speak. I am all ears. The long-bearded scholar approached him while sneering repeatedly. Every debt has a debtor, you and I have no past grudges, nor recent hatred. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 37 Killed Instead. Just as Yang Chen finished saying his typical phrase, hundreds of inflammation talismans suddenly burst out of the ground around the long-bearded scholar. One explosion from an inflammation talisman would be absolutely unable to injure the scholar. The explosions of 100 inflammation talismans, which were furthermore enhanced by the universal treasure-raising secrets, however, would naturally change the outcome. When he killed the first opponent, Yang Chen immediately became aware that these guys would certainly find the corpse in an instant, so he rapidly placed hundreds talisman papers in different places underground and now, affected by his spiritual awareness, they immediately exploded. Just a moment ago, he had forcefully used all of the spirit power in his body, and he was just barely able to move the great defensive spell of the medicine garden, but he was too weak to fully control it, so he was injured and had to suffer the backlash. The enemy, however, had surprisingly miscalculated when Yang Chen was speaking and did try to make Yang Chen flee into the maze again. One Yang Kai pill which Yang Chen had long ago put into his mouth timely entered his stomach and then he frantically unleashed those inflammation talismans he deployed long ago. Apart from the inflammation talismans, there were also 12,000 Jin talismans, as well as many tens of gigantic wood talismans. With using wood to make fire, the inflammation talismans might increased even more, to the maximum. At the same time, tens of huge trees, thick enough one would have to wrap one's arm around it, suddenly appeared in the sky, crashing towards the long-bearded scholar. In the time it takes for an eye to blink, the long-bearded scholar's entire body was buried under the pile of flames and huge trees, and his presence could not be seen anymore. The fearful blade within Yang Chen's hand slashed out once and was just about to go up when he suddenly heard a mad roar. From within the lighted huge trees, suddenly a huge and very long-haired claw appeared. This claw emitted a majestic pressure onto the surrounding flames, and unexpectedly, not even a single flame was able to channel through. However, only the flames were blocked, those huge trees were sturdily smashing into the huge claw, and immediately the owner of the claw issued a loud howl. After a moment, a shadow like a leopard flew out from within the flames and directly pounced towards Yang Chen. Yang Chen's blade was already horizontal in front of his chest, so upon seeing this he loudly shouted, raising the fierce blade within his hand to the top of his head, and with strength enough to split open mountains, he chopped the blade towards the leopard flying at him. As quick as a spark from flint and steel, one human, one beast, within a blink, the distance between them had already closed to less than a meter. The momentum of Yang Chen's blade was very quick. From raising the blade to chopping down, he didn't waste any time. The bright and beautiful tip of the blade flashed through the sky so fast, the rest of the blade wasn't even visible anymore. The charging leopard's body was going to hit Yang Chen, but as if it had suddenly lost all of its strength, its body stopped in the sky, and following a breaking sound, it split into two pieces in front of Yang Chen. The cut was smooth as a mirror. However, Yang Chen was not checking up on the leopard's body, rather scouting the left-hand side. He took out tens of both inflammation talismans and great tree talismans, and he detonated all of them to mask up the evidence of the attack in the area and went away. Boom boom. From within the sounds of explosions and ramming, suddenly a leisurely voice was heard. "The blade. I want it." Following which, the long-bearded scholar's pensive silhouette suddenly appeared outside the flames. From head to toe, he had not taken the least bit of damage and still had the same elegant appearance as before. Hearing his voice and seeing his image, Yang Chen's whole body suddenly trembled, as if he had too shocked. The fierce blade within his hand subconsciously shot towards the scholar, and indeed the blade was thrown to give it to him, rather than with a wish to injure him. Yang Chen's sorry-looking figure was not missed by the scholar's eyes, so he slightly smiled when Yang Chen's blade already had reached him. The long-bearded scholar merely reached out his hand to grab the fierce blade with his hand. Once it entered his hand, the long-bearded scholar at once sensed something strange about the fierce blade and suddenly madly shouted. "Magic weapon." His voice was brimming with pleasant surprise, as if he had received 100 million treasures. From the start he had been lusting after Yang Chen's weapon, that blade which had easily killed and beheaded 3 of his comrades. He even suspected that this was a talisman gem. He had personally seen Yang Chen kill his spirit pet, which confirmed that the fierce blade in Yang Chen's hand was, at least, a talisman gem. Thinking this, he had reached out his hand to catch it, but he never anticipated that this blade was actually a magic weapon. To think that a magic weapon could become his, the long-bearded scholar laughed until he almost fainted. Just because a kid of the first Kai layer didn't know what was that, did not mean that he would also not know what was that. However, when he had barely discovered that it was a magic weapon, a sword intent suddenly appeared from the blade within his hand and attempted to devour him. Magic weapon. His voice had immediately changed flavor, he shouted the same words as before, but the meaning was now entirely different, this time his voice was full of alarm and shock. If it really was a flying sword magic weapon, then because of his cultivation at the 8th Chi layer, he may not be able to bind it at once. A cultivator of the 1st Chi layer could remain unscathed after coming in contact with it, so surely it had to be a magic weapon which hadn't passed through refining. This kind of magic weapon, he was holding the handle in his hand. But he hadn't expected that this magic weapon would be so surly and unreasonable like this. The long-bearded scholar sensed something queer and immediately wanted to get away from the blade within his hand, however, he did not have enough time. The violently surging sword intent entered his body and directly reached for the core of his spiritual awareness. Hi. The scholar's body was like a hedgehog, illusory images of needles appeared all over him, and in a flash, the scholar's whole body was filled with holes and turned into a huge leaking sieve. Soon his whole body, from top to bottom, appeared as if it did not have any bones and fell down flexibly like a puddle of mire. If you had had the strength of a Zhanxian stage expert, then I would have agreed with you. Yang Chen slowly walked forward and leaned in to pick up the fierce blade inserted into the ground and placed it into his achievement ring. Shaking his head towards the muddy paste on ground said. But unfortunately, you did not have that. From the beginning, Yang Chen never intended to use his own talisman papers to repel the enemy. The talisman papers were refined at the time he was at the 1st Chi layer, even if they were processed through the universal treasure-raising secrets and used in large quantities, they could not injure a master of the refined Chi 8th level. The detonation of so many talisman papers was just to cover this final strike by throwing the blade. Yang Chen getting stunned and throwing his blade to attack him was all a part of his plan. His killer weapon was precisely this fierce blade. In his previous life, this blade had taken the life of a Zhanxian stage expert who didn't know the secret way to refine it. This long-bearded scholar had a cultivation of the 8th Chi layer to forcefully try to bind the blade, death was the only possible outcome. There ought to be one more enemy, but Yang Chen was unable to find his whereabouts using his spiritual awareness. Furthermore, after this kind of fierce fighting, the sound of the explosion of the inflammation talismans was so loud, but still the enemy hadn't appeared, it could only be assumed that he was not there. Yang Chen would no longer look for him and began to slowly collect his spoils of war. Apart from the long-bearded scholar, no other enemy had an intact corpse. Facing the enemy, Yang Chen was naturally not modest, those 4 still intact Qianqin pouches, naturally they were now Yang Chen's property. 3 people of the 7th Chi layer and 1 8th Chi layer master were chasing to kill him, even if Yang Chen was benevolent, he could still not contain his bottomless fury. This affair was surely Sun Haijing and Chu Heng's idea, otherwise, Sun Haijing would not have said those words before he left. However, based on Sun Haijing's background, he did not have the ability to hire these experts. The situation, it's not yet over. In his previous life, Yang Chen had suffered these kinds of attacks, but he would not this time. The recent chase to kill him made him experience the feeling of a stray dog that he had felt throughout his previous life. If it were not for the rule that disciples of the same sect could not kill each other, Yang Chen would have already taken care of Sun Haijing at the 9 Earth Manor. The other party was not willing to spare him though, so it seems that after he returns this time, at the day of sex martial art competition, he would have to get rid of Sun Haijing and vent his heart's anger. All along he had not fired back when they chose to kill him, in this life Yang Chen did not intend to take such an attitude. To invite 7th and 8th Chi layer masters, ordinary spirit stones were not enough, only if one were to offer talisman gems suitable for their use, would one have a chance to hire them. At that moment, Yang Chen was searching for such gems in the Qianqin pouches these assassins had left behind. Maybe he could find traces of Chu Heng's creation skill among these items. Even if he was not able to find them, Yang Chen still wanted to spread the news. Chu Heng could not directly deal with Yang Chen, as he was the merit-transferring disciple. This was a well-known secret in the Yishu Manor and the 9 Earth Manor, but these baseless rumors could still get Chu Heng in trouble for some time. What about hiring assassins himself? Yang Chen didn't want to, since he had crossed over, even the Jade Emperor had turned into a departed spirit under his blade, so no matter what sort of enemy it was, Yang Chen wanted to use the edge of his own blade, like how he had gotten rid of these few just recently. Yang Chen threw these few corpses into the illusion spell, and within this brief period, he would not have to worry about them being discovered. If it went in accordance with his past life's development, these few corpses would only be found after 10 years. Under the cover of the illusion spell, Yang Chen spent almost 10 days recovering from the injuries he had received when the defensive spell of the medicine garden tried to devour him. He was lucky that this time the clean bottle had absorbed enough spirit power, this has saved Yang Chen's spirit power from suffering devastating damage. However, it was convenient this way because Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was already comparable to that of the mid-foundation stage. Still, forcefully stimulating the array had led to his spiritual awareness being harmed. Luckily Yang Chen had already bound the medicine garden, so even if he were to be devoured, it would not be fatal, he would merely lose a portion of his spiritual awareness. The three purities secret was matchlessly wondrous. Within a few days, it had already restored Yang Chen's lost spiritual awareness. When he emerged again, he went to the Thousand Autumn Pavilion in the city market at Myking Mountain. This was originally a shop run by Pure Yang Palace. Yang Chen casually entered, and when anyone saw that there hung a Qianqin pouch with the sign of the Pure Yang Palace at his waist, nobody stopped him and allowed him to directly go up to the hall above. Bang! Yang Chen threw a bundle wrapped in layers of cotton cloth on the table. The cold frost across his entire face made Yang Chen look very fierce and violent. He intentionally leaked some killing intent which made Yang Chen look like he surely wanted to attack. If he had not been a disciple of the Pure Yang Palace, perhaps someone would have already thrown him out. Younger disciple Yang, what is this? The fat shopkeeper noiselessly appeared in front of Yang Chen. Since he was one of them, it was natural for the shopkeeper to come out and receive him. This shopkeeper was a cultivator at the 6th Kai layer, merely he was previously a servant and only after reaching the 5th Kai layer was he picked to go out and take care of sex business. He was very respectful towards the Pure Yang Palace's disciples, which had come out to train. Yang Chen had come here last time, so the shopkeeper naturally recognized him. Yang Chen immediately opened the wrapped-up cloth, exposing 3.5 severed heads and a talisman tool in very good condition inside. The reason why there were 3.5 heads was because of that guy who had been minced by the sword spell. Only half of his head could be found, however, this could probably still be used to determine his identity. These things were found on their bodies, they resemble my Pure Yang Palace's creation skills quite closely. Yang Chen bitterly smiled. When did my Pure Yang Palace's people start colluding with outsiders to kill the sex disciples? The shopkeeper was greatly shocked hearing this. Previously when Yang Chen was coming to the Nine Earth Manor, he had been attacked by an assassin. This affair had already caused almost all of the loose cultivators in the surroundings of the Myking Mountain to be interrogated. It was just like the previous matter had occurred yesterday, and today Yang Chen was attacked by assassins once again. In addition to that, even disciples of the Pure Yang Palace were implicated by this. For the shopkeeper, these words were like a lightning bolt from the sky. Seeing these people's heads, the shopkeeper immediately recognized them. These few were famous loose cultivators, they formed a group and would frequently come and go in the city market. However, these cultivators had a pretty good cultivation, while Yang Chen was merely a disciple of the 1st Kai layer, yet unexpectedly he had killed would-be killers. This stunned the shopkeeper even more and he felt endless admiration for Yang Chen. These guys also had one more companion, go and find his whereabouts, maybe you can find who is responsible for this. Yang Chen pointed this out and then immediately got up to leave. I am still occupied with my mission, so I will have to trouble senior brother to deal with this affair. Surprisingly, during the time when the Pure Yang Palace's disciples go outside to train, I still haven't crossed the Myking Mountain and have already been chased by people with murderous intentions. Yang Chen had not even left the building and the news was already sent back to the Pure Yang Palace. Immediately the higher-ups became furious again. The whole nest of the law enforcement hall once again came out and once again started a big investigation, turning the sky and earth upside down in the surroundings of Myking Mountain. Hearing the news about this investigation, Sun Haijing became very alarmed and desperate and finally he was unable to hold back the fear in his heart. In the name of seeking advice, he once again appeared in front of Chu Heng. Master, what should we do? If the law enforcement hall's investigation reaches us, we will be ruined. Sun Hai almost started weeping while saying these words, trying to kill disciples of the same sect, this was a huge crime, in case they were found out, the consequences would be too horrible to imagine. Why are you losing your head? Chu Heng was also somewhat fearful, but he ultimately didn't let it show on his face. First he used a formation to seal the surroundings and then he said. That guy who is still alive, haven't you given him the spell method for finding Yang Chen's Qianqin pouch? I did, master. What Sun Haijing was afraid of was the severe punishment he would receive if the guy who was alive was found, he will die without a burial site. Don't worry, I have left a tracking formation on that spell method scroll. Chu Heng stood up, calmly tidying his clothes as he said. He will not survive tomorrow's sunrise. You have to return for the time being. If others ask you something, just say that you don't know anything. Yes, master. When Sun Haijing heard Chu Heng's further plans, he felt very relieved and returned to his own courtyard and immediately began a closed-door training session without paying any more attention to outside affairs. As soon as Sun Haijing had walked far enough, Chu Heng came out and started cursing in the direction Sun Haijing had disappeared to. Be wastrel. can't even take care of such a trivial matter, still needs me to take care of it, humph. If killing you wouldn't leave obvious traces to me, I would have immediately killed you to silence you." After finishing his cursing, his figure disappeared in a flash. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 38, Spreading his reputation. Currently, Chu Heng was facing very embarrassing and dangerous circumstances if he was not able to promptly eliminate the guy who had come to ask for the tracking formation, or he was discovered first by disciples of the law enforcement hall. He would have to face the punishment for trying to cause harm to a disciple of the same sect. Even if he was already an inner disciple at foundation stage and Yang Chen was only a disciple of the first Kai layer, the sect rules are the sect rules and they would not be changed based on someone's cultivation. In addition to that, Du Qian had admired Yang Chen from the beginning. As for those guys at the law enforcement hall, Yang Chen, who had the background of an executioner, gave them a familiar feeling, which made them identify with him. In case they were to investigate and find that he had been the cause of this, then the only way, apart from admitting guilt and being executed, would be to desert the sect and flee. What made Chu Heng most furious was that it was all due to a minor outer disciple, furthermore just a first Kai layer disciple. If he had been the disciple of another school, even if he was a member of the sect, he wouldn't even have the qualifications to go out and train. Not to mention his fighting strength, at this point, most of the disciples with similar cultivation would have at most learned how to draw some talisman papers. Even the lowest leveled magic requires the strength of the second Kai layer, then how was Yang Chen able to defeat people many layers above him? Could it be that a foundation stage disciple was with him? Du Qian had pretty good relations with Yang Chen. Could it be that Du Qian had appeared at that time? Chu Heng did not doubt this much. If Du Qian had really appeared, then Yang Chen would definitely not have carried their heads to the Thousand Autumn Pavilion afterward, they would have been directly taken to the law enforcement hall's disciples. However, Chu Heng was convinced that this could in no way have been achieved by Yang Chen alone. Who was Yang Chen? A person who cultivated for at most 1 hour and at most circulated the Kai 2 times in a day, a kid who had done nothing except reading in the hidden pavilion, a guy who never properly attended to his own tasks. If it was a matter regarding the concoction of pills, perhaps Chu Heng could have believed it, but as for fighting, Chu Heng did not trust it at all. The strength to defeat a group of cultivators. To defeat Sun Haijing, a third Kai layer disciple, was still possible, however having the strength to defeat an enemy with a 6 or 7 layer discrepancy, moreover, when the enemy was attacking in a group, Chu Heng would not believe this, even if he was beaten to death. The only possible explanation was that Yang Chen had a powerful figure behind him, this gave Chu Heng some confidence. On the basis of this logic, Yang Chen's reason for entering the Pure Yang Palace was not pure-hearted. Unfortunately, he was not able to get rid of Yang Chen, neither was he able to find any evidence that Yang Chen had bad intentions, so presently Chu Heng could only get rid of that assassin to take care of the current pressure. Just to scratch an itch on Yang Chen's foot, he would have to sacrifice his whole body. Naturally, when this news was sent back to Nine Earth Manor, the self-confidence of all the outer disciples in the manor increased by a lot. A first Kai layer disciple of the Pure Yang Palace had unexpectedly managed to get rid of 7th and 8th layer loose cultivators. If this did not demonstrate their sex superiority, then what would? Compared to the usual, all of them were somewhat inspired. Chen Da and other 3 were even more exceptionally excited. The more Yang Chen's reputation increased, the more their status would increase in the future. If only they remained completely devoted to him, Yang Chen would surely guide them. Compared to the smug confidence other disciples had, Shi Da and the others possessed a deep understanding of their strength. For Yang Chen to kill 7th and 8th Kai layer assassins was naturally his own strength, which had no relation to them. The one who was incessantly terrified was only Sun Haijing. During this time he could not eat a day or sleep at night, every second he was living under immense fear. If he had the option to choose again, he would have never made those cynical remarks to Yang Chen before he had left. Other people may find it exaggerated, but Sun Haijing was very clear about it. Those cultivators surely had the strength of the 7th or 8th Kai layer, while Yang Chen did not have anyone to help him. Uncle Master Du Qian had directly returned to the Pure Yang Palace after leaving the Nine Earth Manor and hadn't come out afterward. Chu Heng had paid careful attention to this point, so he was sure that he wasn't wrong. Yang Chen certainly had indeed gotten rid of those 4 assassins by himself. 3 of the 7th Kai layer, 1 of the 8th Kai layer. Even if Sun Haijing gave his all this time, at most he would reach the 4th Kai layer. Even if he also counted those talisman tools and talisman gems bestowed to him by Chu Heng, he was sure that his power would be comparable to the 5th Kai layer. Even against a 6th Kai layer disciple, he could still have 1 or 2 opportunities. But fighting with a 7th Kai layer disciple? He did not even dare to think about it. Yang Chen had surprisingly gotten rid of 3 7th Kai layer cultivators and an 8th Kai layer cultivator by himself, and based on Sun Haijing's familiarity with those people, they had probably attacked together, yet they were still killed by Yang Chen. This way, at the day of the sect's great contest, even if Yang Chen did not buy any talisman tools or talisman gems, his strength would still be sufficient to get rid of Sun Haijing. Sun Haijing was now counting the days he had left by scratching them into the skin of his forearm. To die, after having been a disciple of the Pure Yang Palace for several years, having directly become the merit-transferring disciple Chu Heng's hitbone, to Sun Haijing, whose future prospects were supposed to be immeasurable, this was more painful than death. He often thought about how he had become so obsessed. At the time when Yang Chen was entering the sect, he had tried to make things difficult for Yang Chen. His whole body noiselessly shuddered, as if still regretting the option he chose at that time. Yang Chen was not anxious about the accomplice of those assassins, believing that Chu Heng would want him dead even more than Yang Chen did. Anyway, he had already disclosed the matter to the higher-ups, and the law enforcement hall had already sent out disciples. If the accomplice would still dare to appear and had not fled for his life, he really would be doing a service to those guys. At least now Yang Chen could leisurely ride the paper crane made by that black-clothed man and fly calmly. He was convinced that after this news had spread, it would be unlikely that anyone with good eyesight would come and attack him. Yang Chen had only thrown down a few heads in the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, however, it had given rise to a huge earthquake within the Pure Yang Palace. Almost all of the loose cultivators were interrogated, one by one, and at the same time the entire lives of these few assassins were completely dug up. Because those people had already died, many people spoke without any worry, and immediately countless affairs of these people acting tyrannically and not shrinking away from doing any imaginable crime came out. In addition to that, everyone was most interested in how these few people had died. The first Kai layer outer disciple of the Pure Yang Palace got rid of them. 3 7th Kai layer, 1 8th Kai layer cultivator. How is this possible? After hearing this, countless people had this thought in their mind. People weren't convinced at all that a 1st Kai layer cultivator could kill 7th and 8th Kai layer masters. Perhaps a person with a lot of talent at a time when he is at a low level could kill an enemy at a higher level than him, but that was only limited to 2 or 3 stages above, like a 1st Kai layer cultivator could kill a 2nd Kai layer cultivator. This was entirely possible. But, with a difference of 6 or 7 stages and facing several people together, this was totally ridiculous. As the Pure Yang Palace gone mad, wanting to promote this disciple, the news slowly spread and finally came to the ears of people from other sects. Those people's first reaction was precise that the Pure Yang Palace wanted to cultivate this disciple. Hearing that previously Yang Chen had been an executioner, numerous people's mouths twitched, expressing their disdain. Even though they were cultivators and shouldn't have these kinds of thoughts, this was too much for even them. When the time came, they had to humiliate this arrogant youngster and the Pure Yang Palace. Yang Chen was not aware of this, and even if he knew, he was unlikely to care about it. On the whole journey, Yang Chen had never ridden on the paper crane, but rather walked slowly and unhurriedly on the road, enjoying the scenery, feasting his eyes on the nearby landscape. When passing by mountains and rivers his eyes turned almost every time to look around. On this whole journey, Yang Chen didn't squander, but rather paid careful attention to everything. Man reflects the earth reflects the heaven reflects the Tao, and the Tao reflects its own nature. In his previous life, Yang Chen was only proficient in fire-attributed magic and not at all in any other kinds of magic. Even though he had read about many ancestors' cultivation experiences inside the hidden pavilion, they were all different people. Yang Chen was able to comprehend some of it, but some others he still could not comprehend, but it just so happens that by means of observation during the journey, combined with his own understanding, he could master these things by comprehensively studying his surroundings. This experience of the way of the earth was not just sufficient for cultivators of foundation stage and below, but even up to the Dacheng stage. As for the way of heaven, the way of Tao and the way of nature, these needed an even higher level of cultivation, only then could they be pursued. No matter whether it was the mountains, the earth, rivers, flowers and plants, all were targets for Yang Chen's careful observation. Yang Chen remembered that in his previous life, the heavenly imperial court had an expert who said, "One flower, one world. One grain of sand, a newly grown leaf and a vast forest under a mountain, they were not so different at all." Yang Chen pondered over this argument as much as he liked, leisurely spending the time. As for learning through experiencing human society, it was unnecessary for Yang Chen, as he had already been a Great Principle Golden Immortal. As long as Yang Chen acted in accordance with his own needs, it would be fine. Even if it was like this, once Yang Chen started hurrying to Floating Mountain, the distance just took 4 or 5 days to cover. When he had come to the foot of the floating mountain, but not yet entered the city market of that small town, Yang Chen saw Gongsun Ling's figure in a roadside pavilion. Gongsun Ling still was dressed in a yellow-colored dress, covering her whole body, deeply impressing Yang Chen with its delicate patterns and designs. Yang Chen was aware that Gongsun Ling had made all of it by herself. Even though she was at the 6th Kai layer, she was still not able to refine magic tools. When Gongsun Ling had made these clothes, however, she had always created them very delicately. Her thin legs and slender waist were emphasized by her well-fitted clothes, further increasing the unwillingness in people to avert their eyes. At that time, Gongsun Ling, who was pondering over a jade slip in her hands with an earnest expression on her face, appeared as if she was matchlessly devoted to her task. From Yang Chen's direction, only half the side of her face could be seen, but that quiet and elegant demeanor still made Yang Chen lose his breath for a split second. Yang Chen had not seen many beautiful women, but the few he had met were all peerless and magnificent beauties. Chang'e, Xuannu, Zhainu and other female immortals, any of whom had a unique manner and appearance. They held no attraction for Yang Chen, however. When he was humiliated all day long and by himself, who would still have the time to think about them? The only woman who had left a profound impression on Yang Chen's mind in that life was his own beautiful master. Other people, even if they were the cool, elegant and magnificent Zhanxian or the beautiful woman Sun King Shu would become, none has left any deep impression in Yang Chen's heart. But in this one moment, Yang Chen was attracted towards Gongsun Ling. Perhaps it was because of the good-intentioned warning she had given him at the hidden pavilion, or perhaps because she was indifferent, meticulously studying here. In short, Yang Chen had suddenly become very fond of looking at this half of a face. As if, by looking at her, he could allow himself to have a moment of content in his heart. After he blankly stared at her for a moment, Gongsun Ling's attention finally changed from the jade slip to Yang Chen. When Yang Chen was still very far, she had already become aware of him. However, she was thinking about a difficult problem at that time, so only now did she pay attention to Yang Chen. Nevertheless, not being rude, she raised her head, exposing an indifferent, smiling expression, and faintly nodded. "You have come, younger brother Yang." That smiling expression and slight nod made Yang Chen suddenly feel a sense of belonging, and even if Du Qian had shown such consideration for him, Yang Chen wouldn't feel this sensation. Gongsun Ling had only spoken 5 words with him, from the beginning to the end, yet Yang Chen suddenly had this kind of feeling. "I have arrived, senior apprentice sister." In this split second, Yang Chen resolved himself that, in this life, he would not allow the tragedy of his past life to be repeated. Such a capable person with absolutely splendid talent can and must not be allowed to die at the instant of ascending to the next realm. Having resolved himself to this a moment ago, before Yang Chen could say anything, Gongsun Ling, who was sitting opposite to him, watching him, had a change in her complexion, suddenly pointing towards Yang Chen, alarmed, she asked. "Younger brother Yang, what's going on with the spirit power in your body? How can it be so chaotic?" Actually, Gongsun Ling had surprisingly discovered the different attributed spirit power in Yang Chen's body. It was not at all pure. Wouldn't that mean that the cultivation is destroying itself? Originally, when Yang Chen was at the 1st Kai layer, he had fire-attributed spirit power. The other types of spirit power were suppressed by the reverse yin and yang 5 phases, which kept the energy unmixed and at the same time, also made it difficult to be discovered by other people. Therefore, regardless of whether it was Xu Heng or Du Qian, even Zhu Chentao wasn't able to detect it. At this time, Yang Chen's yin and yang 5 phases secrets had already entered the 2nd Kai layer, and his spirit power had greatly expanded. Naturally, this was sensed by Gongsun Ling. Yang Chen had a fire star spirit root, naturally he would cultivate fire-attributed spirit power, but suddenly in his body, there was spirit power of many other attributes. How could that not make people concerned? This chaotic spirit power, could it be that Yang Chen had come across some problems? It is just spirit power of the 5 phases, it is nothing to be alarmed at. Yang Chen felt warm in his heart and at the same time exposed a smiling expression on his face. "I merely wanted to experience for myself how to use my fire-attributed spirit power to imitate the spirit power of other attributes, that's all. Therefore, I was trying to practice cultivation methods of other attributes to learn and comprehend." Gongsun Ling's expression became colorful again in a flash. This younger brother Yang is good at surprising people. Staying inside of the hidden pavilion for half a year, reading all of the ancient records. Then he also wants to practice the cultivation methods of other attributes of the 5 phases to understand the other attributes. This kind of thinking would simply make people dumbfounded. Since Yang Chen's present cultivation had greatly increased when compared to the time at the hidden pavilion, however, at least as far as Gongsun Ling could see, for the time being, it's fine to assume that there are no issues. She could only warn him again. "Then you must be careful and by no means should you neglect the route to pursue the tip. Senior apprentice sister, be at ease, I know how to take care of myself." Yang Chen gave a Gongsun Ling a smile to make her feel relieved and then asked. "Senior sister, were you waiting for me here? Are you Yang Chen?" Before Gongsun Ling could reply, a stranger's voice could be heard from the side. Known as the first Kai layer disciple who can kill 7th and 8th Kai layer assassins, on whom the Pure Yang Palace is focusing all of its resources. The voice had a tone which made people feel uncomfortable, as if uncovering a swindler hidden within the crowd. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 39. Just comparing notes won't do. In the direction the voice came from, the figures of several people appeared, all of them in the air, rapidly flying towards them. The people flying over included both male and female cultivators, and apparently while flying, they hadn't used any kind of talisman tools, so they were obviously all at the 6 Kai layer or above. Yang Chen's eyebrows wrinkled. It was a rare occasion for him and his senior sister to speak, but all of a sudden a heap of garbage had come to interrupt them. Seeing Gongsun Ling, who was frowning resentfully, he immediately thought of a plan within his heart. Who says that? Complete nonsense. Yang Chen surprisingly refuted without taking the time to think. Who is spreading this rumor? You must not spread falsehoods, there is no reason to throw away your dignity as cultivators. The other party was approaching with great momentum, but they hadn't expected that Yang Chen would declare it as untrue. Suddenly the cultivator who had earlier taken the lead to talk had gotten caught up in an awkward situation. Originally he had thought to use this rumor to ridicule Yang Chen, but how could he expect that Yang Chen would immediately deny it? Yang Chen had outrightly denied it. What did he mean by flaring up the rumor? In addition to that, Yang Chen's tone was unforgiving, denying what he had said and directly putting the label of a person who spreads falsehoods on him, actually making him appear like someone who is reckless to everyone. Fellow Taoist Gongsun Ling of the Pure Yang Palace is also here, why don't you say something? This fellow Taoist Yang Chen, could it be that he is not that Yang Chen of those mad rumors, who had killed those assassins? Under the lead of the male youth, these people landed and started raising difficult questions for Gongsun Ling. Yang Chen had immediately denied it, without using any kind of excuse, however being defeated by Yang Chen left all of them inwardly sulking, so they could not avoid asking the higher level disciple of the Pure Yang Palace. This is my younger apprentice brother Yang. Gongsun Ling put on an icy expression and rudely asked back. However, what relation does this have with you? Could it be those assassins were sent by you? Not at all, we had no grudges with this younger brother Yang, nor any recent hatred. Why would we look for assassins? The leading youth, without paying the slightest attention to Gongsun Ling's questions, continued as before and smiling happily said. Moreover, if we really had any disagreement, could we not take care of it by ourselves? To ask other people to take care of this, truly ridiculous. Unless, like some people, we were afraid to injure the disciples of the same sect and not dare do it by ourselves. Within his words, mockery for Pure Yang Palace's internal strife was evident. In that case, does fellow Taoist Han intend to replace me now and clean house in the sect? Although Gongsun Ling was usually very good-natured, when facing this kind of provocation, she would absolutely counterattack severely regardless. Even though Yang Chen was on her side, she was also his senior. This time, she wanted to help Yang Chen out of the predicament. I dare not, I dare not. This male, surnamed Han, was known as Han Jianda. He was an outer disciple of Tianquan sect and similar to Gongsun Ling, he was a 6 Kai layer disciple. Today he had received the information that Yang Chen was coming over, so he had intentionally rushed over to ridicule him, however, he hadn't anticipated meeting Gongsun Ling. Facing Gongsun Ling, whose cultivation level was similar to him, Han Jianda did not dare to taunt Yang Chen with that kind of tone. Saying I dare not few times afterward, Han Jianda immediately turned his sight towards Yang Chen and, laughing happily, said. Younger disciple Yang, since it is just a rumor, whether it is true or not, younger disciple Yang should not deny it in front of everyone so as to avoid influencing Pure Yang Palace's reputation, alright. Naturally. Under Gongsun Ling's astonished gaze, Yang Chen took a step forward and very affirmatively said. I don't know which bastard had spread this rumor to create confusion, but if it attracts even more senseless people who are depraved enough to kill their mothers and fathers running to come here, how can it be alright if I do not deny the rumor? It was like a Buddhist monk cursing a bald donkey. If Han Giant and the group of people who had come with him could have restrained themselves, they would not have come to trouble Yang Chen just because of some rumors. Even in this life there was no lack of such laughably annoying people among cultivators who couldn't tolerate it if other people's reputation was stronger than theirs. Does fellow Taoist Yang have any way to disprove this rumor? Do you want to kowtow and apologize to all the people who have heard the rumor? Han Giant sneered and rudely said. All the people behind him were same type of people, and Yang Chen's earlier words had evoked their rage, but now naturally they all had heard what was said and burst into laughter, trying to make fun of him. Oh? So fellow Taoist Han Sek's rule to disprove a rumor is to kowtow to all the people who had heard the rumor from the person who the rumor was about. Yang Chen opened his mouth and in a flash turned around towards Gongsun Ling and said. Seen your apprentice sister, when I was on my way here, I heard a few rumors pertaining to fellow Taoist Han sect leader. We must not allow fellow Taoist Han to take this message, otherwise, wouldn't his sect's leader have to come to me to refute the rumor? Gongsun Ling started laughing without saying anything. However, hearing this, Han Jian's lungs almost exploded. What kind of words? What could make his sect leader come and kowtow to Yang Chen to refute them? You dare to humiliate my sect leader? To dishonor Tianquan's sect master? Han Jian was greatly angered and shouted towards Yang Chen in his fury. Eh? Yang Chen was standing right next to him, but without the slightest amount of fear he said. In accordance with Han fellow Taoist's way of thinking, wouldn't refuting the rumor be insulting your sect leader, Tianquan's sect master? Then I cannot understand how can you insult my Puryang Palace's palace master? You. Han Jian pointed his fingers towards Yang Chen, suddenly finding himself at a loss for words. Yang Chen had just a moment ago had certainly said that his sect master would have to come to refute the rumor, however, he hadn't said his sect master must kowtow and apologize, but what he said before was clearly implying this. But, regardless of the words used, he was unable to find any fault with Yang Chen, because whatever Yang Chen had said was all in accordance with his own opinion, using his own words to counterattack. If he said that Yang Chen was wrong, then it would be like beating his own face. Then it seems it was just that fellow Taoist Yang had stated the facts, we just misunderstood. Han Jian was just about to say something, but was obstructed by a female standing behind him. After stopping Han Jian, the female turned towards Yang Chen and said to him with a smiling expression. We are also not aware which bastard had spread this rumor. Yang Chen started cursing fiercely and then said. The words that were passed on were only half of the truth, is he not aware that this can cause misunderstandings? As soon as he opened his mouth to start talking, even Gongsun Ling was turning around somewhat astonishedly. What did he mean by half of the truth? Could it be that Yang Chen actually had killed more than 3 7th Kai layer and 1 8th Kai layer assassin? And was even doubling the number? The people sitting opposite to him, including Han Jian, had almost gone silly listening to this. Not because of shock though, the shock was already over at an earlier time, what they were amazed by was where Yang Chen could get this kind of guts, actually daring to talk rubbish like this. He had already denied the rumor, wouldn't anything else he bragged about immediately be considered as a lie? Could it be that fellow Taoist Yang meant that the rumor was missing half the information? Are you saying that fellow Taoist Yang killed 6 7th Kai layer and 2 8th Kai layer masters? With such an opportunity, Han Jian had to open his mouth and ask this with sinister intentions. What I am saying is that I have the strength of the 2nd Kai layer and not the 1st Kai layer. Yang Chen looked at the group like he was looking at a group of idiots, then softly mumbling to himself. Damn, I have finally realized who had spread these rumors, what the heck. Although Yang Chen mumbled in a very soft voice, all the people present at the scene were cultivators, so each and everyone clearly heard Yang Chen's words. Yang Chen started cursing even more, which could be heard very clearly, without missing a word. However, after hearing Yang Chen's words, Gongsun Ling slightly laughed within her heart, the coldness on her face decreasing by a little. This younger disciple Yang was not someone easy to deal with. Han Jian almost exploded with anger, the group had come to make Puryang Palace lose face, but, in the end, were being abused by Yang Chen's vagueness, and without any opportunity to fight back, how could they not to be furious at him? I do not know if fellow Taoist Yang will be interested, but how about we compare notes with each other? Within his anger Han Jian was unable to deal with the fact that he had the strength of the 6th Kai layer, while the opponent was merely at the 2nd Kai layer, and as soon as he opened his mouth, he issued a challenge. Compare notes. Yang Chen shook his head. I am not a worthy opponent for you to compare notes with, let it pass okay. Why, does younger disciple Yang not have the guts? Hearing Yang Chen admit defeat just like that, everyone, including Gongsun Ling, were all somewhat astonished. Han Jian had nearly coughed up a mouthful of blood as he had so lightly and elegantly avoided him, it was as if he, Han Jian, had used his full strength to launch a punch but was only able to hit empty air, that kind of uncomfortable feeling. He wanted to provoke him, but the opponent had already admitted defeat, how could he be provoked now? Even worse, Yang Chen was a 2nd Kai layer cultivator, for him to be defeated by a 6th Kai layer cultivator was not a matter for which he would lose his face. This has nothing to do with guts. Yang Chen shook his head and walked behind Gongsun Ling. There are a lot of rules when comparing notes in a contest, so I will not be your opponent. However, if fellow Taoist Han is really interested, he might as well find me anytime and issue a life and death duel. After he finished speaking, he did not pay any more attention to Han Jian and directly turned towards Gongsun Ling and said. Has seen your apprentice sister not come here to receive me? Surely the elders of the sect will be anxious, we must leave at once. Gongsun Ling nodded without speaking and immediately started walking. Yang Chen followed suit, started following her closely, directly arriving in front those people. However, these people did not dare to stop them and their bodies moved sideways, letting the two go by. Walking a few steps ahead, Yang Chen then came back and said, "There are only a few days left until the assembly ends. I will be here the entire time, fellow Taoist Han must not delay." He walked a few steps again, but Yang Chen once again turned back and left behind the sentence. "Fellow Taoist Han, by all means, don't tell me you don't have the guts." Just a moment ago Han Giant had ridiculed Yang Chen, but Yang Chen had returned his words to him. Even if Han Giant was considering to not initiate this challenge again, this time, he could not help himself. However, Yang Chen's last words, "to find him anytime," clearly did not allow him any reasons to settle the dispute in private. Han Giant was forced into a corner. Watching Gongsun Ling and Yang Chen enter the small town, Han Giant and the people together with him looked at each other in dismay. Soon they started blaming each other and rapidly left to go to look for their own sex elder. "Younger disciple, you should not have forced him like that a moment ago." After Gongsun Ling entered the small town, she suddenly gasped and said, "If you keep on making enemies for no reason at all, the games will not make up for your losses. If I hadn't provoked him, then would he not still come knocking on my door?" Yang Chen laughed. "Anyway, they had already come to my door, so making them understand the consequences is not bad, otherwise others would take me for a pushover." Gongsun Ling had thought of saying something, but hearing Yang Chen's words in the end she didn't say anything, merely rapidly leading Yang Chen to the branch of the Thousand Autumn Pavilion here. It was a stronghold of the Pure Yang Palace. Every year at the assembly at Floating Mountain, it was their responsibility to take care of the Pure Yang Palace's disciples' everyday life. The Pure Yang Palace also had a Zhanxian stage expert hurry to come here, but he was not a person who Yang Chen was familiar with. Yang Chen merely paid a formal routine visit once and then went to the room arranged for him to rest in, no longer caring about others. Gongsun Ling, however, was not as free and easy as Yang Chen and had to report the incident to the elder. "This youngster, he is quite resolute, contrary to what one might assume. This Jindan stage expert, the hallmaster Zhanxian of the Foreign Affairs Hall in the Pure Yang Palace, he seemed to have more foresight than other people. To use a petty guy and to make other people no longer look at Pure Yang Palace with skepticism was a good trick. As long as he wins this time, I will handle the remaining ones. Our Pure Yang Palace has not had such an interesting disciple in a long time." Hearing Zhanxian's words, Gongsun Ling also let go of the worries in her heart. Merely in her heart she was still somewhat uneasy. If Han Giant insisted on having a life and death challenge, how would Yang Chen be able to continue? She could only hope that Yang Chen had received a genuine killer weapon when killing those assassins. Han Giant quickly returned to Tuan King's sex encampment and hurriedly reported the incident to his own sex elder. The elder in charge of Tianquan sex affairs in this town was the master of Tianquan sex foreign affairs hall and the same as Pure Yang Palace's elder, a Zhanxian stage expert. In front of his own hallmaster, Han Giant didn't conceal the slightest bit of truth. He was aware that if he told lies, his hallmaster could determine even the smallest of lies, so he basically did not dare. "You have made enemies with the Pure Yang Palace." The Foreign Affair Hall's hallmaster wrinkled his brows while listening and asked with a frown. "I have not." Han Giant hastily replied, "What a joke, he was an outer disciple, why would he make enemies with the Pure Yang Palace? Even if the Pure Yang Palace was a small sect, it still had a few Yuaning experts to keep a watch, and he wasn't arrogant enough to dare to challenge Pure Yang Palace." "Then do you have an enmity with that Yang Chen?" The Foreign Affair Hall's hallmaster again asked, wrinkling his brows. "No, I don't." Han Giant, not daring to hide anything, shook his head again. "You had no grievance or enmity with Pure Yang Palace, neither do you have any grievance or enmity with that Yang Chen, but hearing some rumors that someone has killed few people above his realm, you immediately go to seek that person to trouble him." The Foreign Affair Hall's hallmaster could not help but ask this question. His voice contained extreme dissatisfaction. "Disciple. Han Giant did not know what he should say at that time and could only make a few mumbling noises. He was unable to say any other words. A 6 Chi layer cultivator challenging a 2nd Chi layer cultivator, you also really said it and did it, still you merely dared to challenge him to compete with him to learn by interaction, but did not dare to challenge him to life and death duel. You really did give my Tianquan sect great face." The Foreign Affair Hall's hallmaster did not know what to say to Han Giant. "Would your win be honorable? Would his loss give you any benefits? Don't tell me you have never used your head before." The color of Han Giant's face turned to Shen, only then he noticed how pointless and stupid his previous actions had been. If Yang Chen was unable to defeat him, the faults in Pure Yang Palace's rumors could be easily exposed, but he would make himself the target of Pure Yang Palace's hatred. Has the lard gotten to his head at the time that he insisted on troubling this person? He has already invited you to fight a life and death challenge. If you don't dare, then immediately admit defeat and return and enter seclusion for 10 years. The Hall Master of the Foreign Affairs Hall instructed him to do as he wished. And if you dare, then tomorrow you have to challenge him at once and must not lose face for my Tianquan sect. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 40. You won't do a life and death duel. Before the assembly at Floating Mountain could begin, many people heard about some interesting news. Tianquan sect's outer disciple Han Giant had initiated a life or death challenge against Pure Yang Palace's outer disciple Yang Chen, and Yang Chen had immediately accepted that challenge. Both sides had agreed on the time and a vacant land for the life and death duel. For the outer disciples of two sects to partake in a life and death challenge, this was the correct way for cultivators to resolve their hatred and enmity without any tricks. No matter what the outcome is, both parties must let go of all the resentments. Naturally, since it was life and death challenge, often one of the parties died in the end. Since the person had already died, what kind of resentments wouldn't he let go? But in this duel, there was large disparity in the strength of both parties. One was at the 6th Kai layer, the other was at the 2nd Kai layer. However, this was precisely the reason for this life and death challenge. Although Han Jian already somewhat regretted it, Yang Chen had forced him into that position. He was also not a person who would refuse to face reality and not dare to challenge Yang Chen. Although the parties concerned hadn't appeared, a lot of people had already filled the surroundings of the area where the duel was supposed to be held. The majority of them were disciples who were below the foundation stage, the main participants of the assembly at the Floating Mountain. As for the masters with a strength of the foundation stage or above, would two youngsters in Kai realm fighting be worth it for them to specifically come over? Han Giant had not come late, but compared to Yang Chen he was still early. When he appeared, there was not a person from Pure Yang Palace present. Han Giant was also unexpectedly distracted at that time, so he found a place and sat down in meditation, to wait and to meditate. From left to right everyone was waiting, but still nobody from Pure Yang Palace had appeared yet, so gradually the surrounding people started commenting. What is the matter? The people of Pure Yang Palace should not be afraid. Strange, have they not negotiated the arrangements of the life and death challenge? The agreed upon time is already here, yet they still haven't come. They are really clever. A 2nd Kai layer cultivator against a 6th Kai layer cultivator, isn't that simply throwing away one's life? That is not completely correct. That disciple of Pure Yang Palace is known as Yang Chen. Reportedly he had already fought and killed 3 7th Kai layer and an 8th Kai layer assassins. A 6th Kai layer cultivator is a mere trifle for him. How do you know that is really true? Maybe the Pure Yang Palace has spread this just to increase his reputation. What is the Tianquan sect doing? A 6th Kai layer disciple issuing a life and death challenge against a 2nd Kai layer cultivator, isn't this simply bullying? The Tianquan sect and the Pure Yang Palace are not known to have any great disagreements. I have heard that it was Tianquan sect's disciple Han Giant who had taken the initiative to issue this challenge. It is said that fellow Taoist Han had demanded a contest to learn by interaction, but Pure Yang Palace's disciple fellow Taoist Yang had immediately admitted defeat, saying that he is not his opponent. If it was a life and death challenge, then maybe they could fight. Fellow Taoist Han couldn't just decline, if only to not put the label of a person who bullies the weak on himself. It would be fine if he won, but if he lost he would have to compensate with his life and fall from grace, alas. Discussing all of this and whatnot, everyone standing on the side of Tianquan sector the Pure Yang Palace, each were making their own theories at that time. Luckily the Floating Mountain Assembly was considered an important event in the cultivation world, so numerous sects participated in it. However, everyone was polite with each other, so everyone just talked with each other, but didn't make any aggressive actions or comments. Naturally Han Giant also heard the discussions, but the more everyone was calmly discussing about it, the more depressed Han Giant was getting. To escalate to a life and death duel from a mere quarrel over a minor issue, their words were not entirely false, he had forced himself into the current situation. If he could get another opportunity, he would absolutely not run around and try to trouble Yang Chen again. Feeling gloomy enough to vomit blood, Han Giant could not help but reach his hand for that talisman gem given to him by his Foreign Affairs Hall's master. The Jidant stage expert had only given him a bracelet, refined by the elder personally. As long as he feeds enough spirit power into it, it will immediately launch a devastating strike, which people below the foundation stage could at most barely survive with heavy injuries, if not die altogether. His opponent Yang Chen only had the strength of the 2nd Kai layer. As long as he was hit by this attack, he would die without any doubt. Unfortunately, the Foreign Affairs Hall's master had refined this for a female disciple, so Han Giant could only conceal it within his Qianqin pouch, otherwise if he wore it on his wrist, it would be impossible to defend effectively. But this he could certainly kill Yang Chen. only because it would produce hatred and desire for revenge within the pure Yang Palace, was Han Jian very anxious. However, compared to his life, this future inconvenience could be resolved afterwards, at least for now he needed to live. Thinking this, Han Jian calmed his mind while an expression of confidence bloomed on his face. The people observing him naturally understood what was going on and sighed for Yang Chen, who had yet to appear. A disciple who was brought to the floating mountain assembly by their sect is one whom the sect thinks highly of. Unfortunately, he is going to die at the life and death challenge. Yang Chen was running a little late. After a quarter of an hour had passed beyond the agreed time, he and Gongsun Ling appeared on the scene. Gongsun Ling had a look of watching passively, simply without any intention to help. Actually, even if Gongsun Ling wanted to, she couldn't help. If someone breaks the custom in a life and death challenge between two people by saving one of them, it is seen as a provocation to everybody present on the scene. I was thinking that you are afraid of death so you wouldn't come. Han Jian coldly laughed while getting up. He had a great killing tool within his hand, he was not afraid in the least. The arrangements were to come at this time, I am not late. Yang Chen replied indifferently, then he turned towards the arbitrator and asked. Can we begin? The arbitrator was some other sect's foundation stage disciple. In a life and death duel, the arbitrator is only responsible for making sure that both parties have nobody secretly assisting them, however, he has nothing to do with the other rules. In response to Yang Chen's question, the arbitrator looked towards Han Jian, who faintly nodded. The arbitrator did not immediately begin, but instead asked both of them. This is a life and death duel, it will not stop till someone dies. Before the duel, does any one of you have anything to say? No. Han Jian shook his head, in any case the one to die will not be him, so why speak so much rubbish? And you? The arbitrator looked at Yang Chen. For every debt there is a debtor, you and I have no past grudges, nor recent hatred, you took the initiative to initiate a life and death duel, which won't stop until death, so on the road to the underworld, don't blame the gods and accuse anyone, be at ease and on your way. Yang Chen expressionlessly finished speaking these words and did not speak anything again. The arbitrator took a look at the left and right, then calmly waved his hand downwards. Begin. Right after that he rapidly retreated, immediately withdrawing from the circle between both parties. A sinister smile appeared on Han Jian's face. He did not intend to bring out the great killing weapon in the beginning. At least, until Yang Chen died, he wanted to pretend to give him honorable death in response to the recent humiliating words. But before Han Jian could even move, he sensed something directly before his eyes. Greatly alarmed, his throat started tightening, as if his entire person had been frozen. But the support of two agility talismans strengthened by the universal treasure-raising secrets, Yang Chen's speed increased almost 2 to 3 times. The distance between the two was not that far, so Yang Chen merely took a step using some strength and immediately arrived in front of Han Jian. In Han Jian's eyes, Yang Chen's figure appeared at his side instantly. This kind of speed was just like that of a demon, so Han Jian made a timely decision, he could not delay using his killer weapon anymore, it was just that he was already somewhat late coming to this conclusion. A mountainous pressure enveloped him, to him it was like he was in hell. This kind of frightening aura destroyed all of his determination to resist, his whole body had gone rigid, incapable of moving anymore. Even those immortals of the heavenly court felt scared when Yang Chen released his killing intent to the greatest extent, let alone a mere 6-Kai layer ordinary disciple. In the eyes of everyone watching, Han Jian had turned into a fool, merely reaching his hand to the edge of his Qianqin pouch, but unable to take the next action. Spare my life. These two simple words which he could speak effortlessly on a normal day, at this moment they were forcibly stuck in his throat, he wanted to shout, but was not able to do it, and he could only stare helplessly as Yang Chen was nearing him. Desperation filled Han Jian's entire body. Within Yang Chen's hand appeared an absolutely ferocious blade, and with just a slash, the long blade streaked across Han Jian's neck. Under the gaze of many eyes, Han Jian's head flew high in the sky, and blood squirted from his neck. Meanwhile, the culprit of this, Yang Chen, had already stored the long blade and returned back to his original position and did not care to glance towards Han Jian again. He was only looking at the arbitrator, waiting for him to announce the result. All of his actions were too simple, rushing out, slashing the blade once, storing the blade and withdrawing, so simple that it left no suspicion that he cheated. After a moment, Han Jian's body softly fell onto the ground, but Yang Chen's body was quite clean right now, as if he had just taken a bath. There was not a single blood stain on his body. Shocking, startling, unimaginable, unfathomable, various kinds of expressions appeared on the faces of everyone watching. At this moment, everyone present had lost the proper bearing of cultivators, such an unbelievably majestic victory, without even a change in his complexion, it was a vivid performance in front of everyone. Who could have imagined that in a duel between a second Chi layer cultivator and a 6 Chi layer cultivator, a gap of 4 realms, the conclusion of the life and death duel would be as unexpected as this. After countless people had witnessed all of this, everyone felt their hearts go cold, as if that blade which Yang Chen had used to chop off Han Giant's head was above their heads. Previously, if it had not been for Han Giant, who had already appeared first, maybe they would have been the first ones to go to taunt and provoke Yang Chen. Countless people rejoiced within their hearts, glad that they had not been impatient like that, and also glad that Han Giant had jumped out early, providing them a real example. Not only Gongsun Ling, who did not dare to believe this result that had taken place, everyone else also had stupefied expressions for a long time. Even if Gongsun Ling had believed Yang Chen's previous words without any doubt, she still hadn't expected that Yang Chen's response to a cultivator of the 6 Chi layer, Han Giant, would be so simple. The area was filled with a deathly silence, which continued until Yang Chen started speaking again. I am not your opponent in comparing notes. Yang Chen's voice was not loud, but apparently it had woken up everyone and simultaneously warning all of them. But, in a life and death challenge, it looks as if you are not my rival. Right now everyone clearly understood the reason why previously Yang Chen had admitted that he was not his opponent when comparing notes, but who would think of questioning this outcome? The severed head and body of Han Giant clearly illustrated everything, most of all even after his death, he was still tightly clutching that bracelet in his hand, and with just one look anyone could determine that it was a first-rate treasure gem. He did not even have the time to use the treasure gem before dying, even if these people didn't want to believe it, seeing the current circumstances, everyone firmly believed the news that Yang Chen had killed 3 7th Chi layer and an 8th Chi layer assassin by himself. The arbitrator finally managed to respond, bowing his head to look at the headless corpse of Han Giant, and said with an expressionless face. Pure Yang Palace's Yang Chen wins. And then he became quiet again. To him, a third party at the foundation stage, it did not matter who won or lost in a life and death duel between 2 Chi layer youngers. Although he was surprised at Yang Chen's blade's fierceness, it was still only at the level of surprise. Challenging cultivators above his realm, was Yang Chen alone like that in this world? At this point, the curtain for the life and death duel had fallen. The headless corpse of Han Giant was naturally taken by Tianquan sect's people, and Yang Chen also did not pay any more attention to the people present on the scene. Following immediately after the smiling Gongsun Ling, who was providing support from the side, 2 people, one in the front and one in the back, as if nobody was watching, walking rather than riding, they calmly returned to the Thousand Autumn Pavilion. Only after the silhouettes of these 2 people had completely disappeared did discussion started among the people present on the scene, one after another. Did you see that? That guy had the confidence of a killer. Alas, poor fellow Taoist Han was unable to take a lighter view, insisting on going to a life and death challenge with this horrible man. Was it worth the price? Looking down on another, just to trouble someone, thinking himself to be extraordinary. The other guy had already accepted defeat, but he still had to go after him, the fault is his own. There were also many people who had heard Yang Chen's remark before the battle and were interested, so they asked. Pure Yang Palace's fellow Taoist Yang, he said something like debts have a debtor and past grudges, what was that? Are you not aware? This fellow Taoist Yang was an executioner within the mortal world before becoming an apprentice, and every time before he beheaded someone, he would say those words. You should take care and not make him say those kinds of words to you, haha. Executioners can also cultivate. That guy had already killed several masters when he was just at the 2nd Chi layer, and right now we looked at him beheading a 6 Chi layer master, and you ask if he can cultivate. Pretty good, youngster. Seeing Yang Chen and Gongsun Ling return to the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, Zhanxian burst out into loud laughter and praised him. One blade made all of the doubtful people shut up, save your strength and don't worry about anything, I think highly of you. Many thanks Uncle Master. In response to Zhu Chengxin's praises, Yang Chen merely bowed slightly and expressed his thanks. Thank you. I have not done anything. Zhu Chengxin waved his hand and kept on gently laughing while talking about it. This kind of outcome has enhanced my Pure Yang Palace's reputation by a lot. You are just a 2nd Chi layer cultivator, so you should not have any method of flying. This is a bamboo falcon, which used to be my means of transportation in those days. This is a prize for you. While he spoke, a black light already flew towards Yang Chen's body and hovered in front of his eyes. Many thanks Uncle Master. Yang Chen reached out with his hand and grabbed that bamboo crane, and the crane directly lied down on his hand. Truly considerate. Yang Chen only had a paper crane which was imbued with a tracking formation, the bamboo crane was the perfect solution to this problem. Zhu Chengxin always paid close attention to people, and this time, Yang Chen genuinely and sincerely expressed his thanks. Rest for a few days, until the heavenly stairs opens. Zhu Chengxin instructed, beaming with smiles. I also wish to know just how many steps of the heavenly stairs you can climb. If you are enjoying the content, let a like, comment and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.